Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to the Wyndham-Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. The time is 6 p.m. in the Wyndham Middle School cafeteria. May I have a call to order, please?
Kate Briggs?
Yes.
Jessica Bridges?
Yes.
Jenny Butler?
Yes.
Jody Carroll? Caitlin Downs?
Here.
Marge Gavoni?
Yes.
Char Jewell?
Here.
Kate Levier? Christina Small? Here. Al Potter? Here.
Excellent. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance Thank you. Mr. Howe, any adjustments to the agenda?
There aren't any adjustments to the agenda tonight.
Okay, may I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
I move to approve going into executive session to consider the possible expulsion of a student pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405-6B. Seconded.
Thank you. First and second. All those in favor? Thank you. It's unanimous. We're going to move into another room for executive session. I'll be back when that's concluded. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in session. May I have a motion, please?
I move the board determines the following: that the student's actions were deliberately disobedient, that the removal of the student is necessary for the peace and usefulness of the school, that based on these facts, the board hereby expels the student effective immediately for an indefinite period of time, and that the superintendent notify the student and his or her parent of this action in writing with the copy of these written findings of fact and conclusions. Excuse me. If the student is expelled for an indefinite period of time, a reentry plan will be prepared by the superintendent in consultation with the student and his or her family. The parent and student have the right to request readmission pursuant to law.
May I have a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into public input. I have a few statements, as I usually do. Welcome you all to our school board meeting this evening. I understand there's strong emotions and opinions on the motion regarding the book Gender Queer and Other Topics. However, I must ask you to please remain respectful and calm. We're here to have a productive and constructive meeting, and I ask that you demonstrate your commitment to this and respect the following rules and guidelines. The purpose of public comment is to provide an opportunity to address the board on matters specific to our schools and education matters. All other comments beyond that scope are not appropriate for this meeting. The board will listen carefully to all members of the public, but will not respond to the speaker. There should be no interaction between the speaker and the audience. Should that occur, the mic will be turned off until order is restored. The speaker will not forfeit their allotted time should they wish to continue to address the board if order is restored. To be clear, this is an opportunity for the public to address the board and not the audience or any individual. Speakers are expected to follow the rules of common decency, etiquette, and decorum. It is completely inappropriate to interrupt any speaker at the podium or any board member when providing commentary. Each person is granted an opportunity to address the board one time during public comment and is permitted 3 minutes in total to speak. Sharing a portion of the allotted 3 minutes with another speaker is not permitted. At the 3-minute mark, the timer will go off and your time at the podium will conclude. The audio will be turned off if the time limit is not adhered to. If you've not finished your comments during the allotted 3 minutes, you may send your complete statement to the board. Additionally, if you do not wish to speak publicly, you may submit a written statement to the board for their review. Requests for information or concerns that require further research will be noted and referred to the superintendent for further action, if necessary. Recording during the meeting is permitted, however, sitting on the stage is not allowed. Conversations amongst the audience should be removed out of the cafeteria during the meeting. They are distracting to the board and audience members and are not respectful to those who are speaking. I will stop the proceedings if necessary to allow people to move outside to the hallway if needed. Bear with me. Discussion of matters involving individual students are not permitted during public comment due to the privacy, confidentiality, and due process rights of the RSU 14 students. Also, discussion of any personal information, concerns, or criticisms of RSU 14 employees is not permitted during public comment due to the privacy, confidentiality, and due process rights of all RSU 14 employees. Should you have a complaint about any employee of the district, please follow the process outlined in Policy KEB, Public Complaints about School Personnel. Any student who comes to the podium will not be expected to share their last name if they are uncomfortable doing so. Please show them respect when they speak. They deserve it. Adults must share their first and last name and the town they reside in. Finally, if you read an excerpt from a book, please state the title and author. It is my sincere hope that the conduct in this meeting is professional and respectful and reflects the behavior we expect of all of our students. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Who would like to go first?
Wyndham resident. I'm also staff here and a youth leader at a local church. This weekend is prom, so I know staff has been invited, that parents will share pictures and stories. It's great to have everything the way it was pre-COVID. I know the students are so super excited. Also, the art show, you guys have all been promoting the art show. It is a wonderful art show, so if you haven't gone down there to look at it yet, it is amazing. I'm hoping next year it's going to be even better, as it used to be the largest student-led art show in the state of Maine. So hopefully we can get there again. And our PTA, I just want to thank you guys, the board, for supporting our PTA as well, because they put on an amazing luncheon for the staff at the high school today. So shout out to all PTA members and the board support. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is NJ Boatman, and I'm a transgender student at WHS. Good evening, board members. As I know you are aware, tonight you will be voting on whether or not to keep the book Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe in Wyndham High School. So I will be taking this opportunity to speak specifically about this book. Although the people trying to ban genderqueer have repeatedly said that it isn't an attack on LGBTQ+ students, it doesn't change the effect that banning it would have. I do believe that some of these people genuinely think they are doing what is right and do have good intentions, but the intent of their actions is much different than the effect. It is not enough to have good intentions, and the people that truly do have good intentions need to be listening to the ones who will actually be affected. The actual effect so far has been to increase the bullying and harassment of LGBTQ+ students at school. It was bad before this. Even then, there were very few days that I wouldn't be harassed or barked at in the hallways. But since this has started, the number of those days has decreased to 0. I walk through the halls and sit in my classes, and half of what I hear is the same ignorant and hateful rhetoric that is so willfully being spewed at these meetings. The effect that banning this book will have would only be to take away yet another life-saving resource from already underprivileged LGBTQ+ students. Do books completely solve these students' problems? No. But unfortunately, the help and support that these kids need aren't readily available. Unfortunately, this book may be the only support for many students. Parents who do not want their children to read this book have the option of talking to the school or talking to their children. To take away this book would be a violation of free speech, an attack on LGBTQ+ students, and harmful to many, but helpful to none. I'm begging you, please do not give in to the hatred of this other side. Please do what is right and vote to keep genderqueer in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney Edwards, Wyndham, Maine. I wasn't able to attend last meeting, but fear not, since I've been gone, I've had the displeasure and aggravation of my continued search through your uncertain, treacherous sinkhole that seems never ending. Yesterday, finding an additional 10 books falling under trigger warnings for pedophilia, grooming, and child sexual abuse, including sexual assault and the rape of minors. Additionally, I found another book with a trigger warning to bestiality. When I first started vetting the online catalogs for inappropriate content, I can openly say that I was very heartsick, but I was also enraged, infuriated, and just plain pissed off. Now I am no longer shocked, I am just disgusted. Last meeting, I spoke of the power that a book has. The scientific research, backed by credible sources, that the books are written to be stimulating, no matter what the genre. This isn't really a debate. Author's intent in writing is to take you to other places, other worlds, and feel emotions. So the fact that we have people coming up here saying that these passages and images aren't meant to stimulate, I'm sorry, but it's unintelligent, dense, and foolish. Even the last book that I read from about a brutal rape that left the victim covered in piss. We then had a woman stand up and say that the book should be kept because it helped her learn not to walk alone at night. No, I'm sorry, but that is just called common sense. No one should need to read a book about an excruciating, cruel rape to learn that you shouldn't walk alone at night. That's foolish and it's unreasonable. And it's just a ridiculous stance to keep such an inappropriate reading material for children to have access to. I also touched base last time I was here on the high school librarian along with her comments on parent scope of knowledge.
No comment on personnel, please.
I didn't mention any names. And that's well within my rights.
Just be careful.
The high school librarian and the scope of knowledge that she has based upon parents' abilities to give book reviews. This is absolutely insane. The book you're voting on tonight provides minors a secondary access to a pornographic website, you guys. That is not okay. It never would be. Like I said the first time I was here in this auditorium on March 1st, that there will come a day when these parents and concerned residents will definitely be able to say to you that you have indeed committed a Class C felony, and it does serve up to 5 years in prison and up to a $5,000 fine. I don't take this lightly, and neither should any of you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no further comment.
I'd like Joe McIntyre, Wyndham. I'd like to thank the school board for this opportunity to provide public comment regarding the book challenge. Folks have argued that we must allow parents to make decisions about their children's educations and that school libraries should not host pornography. I agree completely, which is why I asked you not to remove genderqueer from the library. There is a system in place for parents to control the text their children can read. Asking the library not to allow their children to access genderqueer might take a little effort, but sometimes parenting requires effort. It might not be as flamboyant as coming to the school board meetings to yell about a book, but the RSU 14 board does not have an interest in promoting virtue signaling, especially when doing so infringes on the rights of other parents and children. I agree, high school libraries should not have pornographic materials available for students. Fortunately, like Renaissance artwork, genderqueer is not pornographic. Discussing sex, which genderqueer barely does in the first place, does not make a book pornographic. One hopes that high schoolers know what sex is. If not, their parents and their schools have both failed them. The idea that learning about sex is so traumatic that young minds have to be prevented from doing so until they turn 25 is so absurd it cannot be taken seriously. Genderqueer presents a non-binary character without focusing on extreme acts of bigotry or expressing a prurient interest in their sex life. Maya, the author and central character, is just a kid and young adult who loves reading and drawing, and very slowly begins to make sense of her experience of gender. It's a sweet story which lacks an easy resolution, but is hopeful in its message. It's a positive narrative for people struggling with gender and a lesson in empathy for those who are not. Some speakers have said that they are concerned about pornography in the library, not the existence of a non-binary person in a book. These speakers have been sandwiched between others who have confused this book challenge with a referendum on whether trans and non-binary people exist. They do, the science is clear. What I find hard to understand is why people who are concerned with pornography but not non-binary gender identities would challenge a book which is not pornographic but does include a non-binary character. This suggests to me that at least some of the arguments about this book are being made in bad faith. If we care about parental rights in pornography, removing genderqueer from the library is a solution in search of a problem. Far from expanding parental choices, it restricts them. It removes a book which is not pornographic while denying young people a useful perspective. The book must evaluate the quality of the arguments being put forward. A bad argument based on false premises does not become correct because the person making it is angry. Yelling in a microphone does not make someone right. Throwing books on the floor and destroying public property does not make someone right. Implying that board members and school adults are groomers guilty of felonies does not make someone right. Casting aspersions on the students addressing the school board does not make someone right. When the only argument offered is based on untruths seasoned with a lack of self-control, that suggests that there is no rational case to be made. I hope the board will carefully consider the claims being advanced, examine their factual bases, and make a decision which best serves all students in the district, not just the community members who have the angriest voices. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kristen Day. First, I'd like to let everyone know that I got somewhat of an answer about the IJJ liability, board liability from the district. There seems to be concern over the legality of SAD 6, Bonnie Eagles, suspending their policy to temporarily remove books for review. ICD board chair and Maine State Representative Nathan Carlo said publicly their action was within their legal right, and there's no 1A precedent set that addresses obscenity in language. There's been no lawsuit of this type, and genderqueer has been removed from libraries all over the state and country. Chris, you said RSU 14 has not been threatened with legal action. However, legal liability has been raised by someone. All right. So last week, a student cited my public input and shared personal experience about it. I would like to say that my words were specific to the usual accusations of hate, people looking to age-censor book content here that distracts from solutions. Hate is not a motive in looking at book content, no matter how much some people want to assign it to us. So it is my opinion that our concern is being misrepresented by the signs. I would never presume to know anyone's personal experience or make claims that hate doesn't exist. Although I will die on the hill that every student, every human faces struggles. Nobody's experience or emotional needs are a higher priority than others. And this is how schools should see every student in school. In other news, on Facebook, I had my first public defamation, including name calling and being 100% misquoted. Someone said they had a sign stolen from their yard and connected me, an apparently idiotic ringleader, to the event. They claimed I said nobody hates anyone, but that in stealing a sign is pretty hateful. This is the kind of guilt by association, knee-jerk reaction that fuels division. It would be like me responding by connecting them to the ed tech who last week defended depraved language at school and said it should therefore be in books, just because they're on the same side. I wouldn't though, because A, they're different people, and B, I would never assume anyone thinks what that ed tech said is okay. If someone stole someone's sign, I denounce it. Nothing to do with me or this side. We all care about kids, but I think we can do better.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Ken Clark, Wyndham. Again, the biggest takeaway I got from, I can't thank Courtney Edwards enough for enlightening me on it, is that different people have a different takeaway when they read a book, period. We cannot rely on one person's interpretation. It's human nature to take away something different. It's a fact. What I ask tonight is for the sake of students' mental health and literally their physical well-being, please remove genderqueer from our library. There is something called tough love that parents and adults must exercise on behalf of our children from time to time. And though it's tough right now, it will benefit them massively and pay massive dividends in the future. Teachers, librarians, administrators, students, and counselors within the RSU 14 district are stepping way over the line by distributing porn pins, propaganda, asking others to be silent, inquiring about fellow classmates' sexuality and sexual experiences, and pushing themselves into the bathroom with peers of different genitalia. I honestly can't even believe I'm saying the words, as if it's I can't believe they're true. But unfortunately, we're going down a deteriorating road, and we got to get back on in the right lane and remove genderqueer and all other ill-guided books that somehow came crashing down into our library with no vetting or parental consent whatsoever. I was not impressed with the committee that reviewed the books. It was librarians, teachers, principals, and I was looking forward to a well-educated, balanced opinion, philosophical, deductive reasoning that supported both sides. I didn't hear it. As a matter of fact, when I heard someone ask, how did you weigh the negatives of the books, I heard crickets, nothing. And then they get up and try to defend it, and honestly, I'm saying this out loud, it sounded like children trying to defend how they didn't do their homework properly. And if that sounds insulting, I want to say that I'm insulted, and so are a lot of the parents here on this side who have been coming to these meetings for 2 years, and we were not even asked to participate on that committee. We have a concern. Not one of us were chosen, and if that doesn't show how biased that committee is, I don't know what does. At the end of the day, what can we say? No one is going to agree on what books should be in the library. That's evident. It's just not going to happen. Different interpretations, different views, and everything. So what's the solution? Let's cut it off at the source. Let's get rid of the library. Let's get rid of it. Honestly, we all agree that this information is accessible anywhere and everywhere, even worse information, as we've heard. So let's say hundreds of thousands on infrastructure costs. We can roll the librarian salaries into the teachers, and we can save tens of thousands on library books, not have to buy them at all. We can set up media centers where there's a computer here, computer there, smaller room. Some people can have access with a card that let them go anywhere on the internet, and others can just have one that says parental consent that they can go only this far on the internet. There are online libraries out there. I went online, found them. You download it, you flick through the page on your laptop, just like it's a book. It just makes sense. It's the source. And honestly, other schools are doing it. Just get rid of the library. It ends everything. And we can all come together finally and just say, you know what? We're all on an equal playing field now. We can have information where we want it, when we want it, and stop this divisionary stuff that is toxicating our community.
Anyone else?
Hi, Lynn Butterfield Raymond. I'd like to start off by discussing what I heard last week about students talking inappropriately in the hallways and classrooms. Is there any disciplinary action happening there, or is it just a free-for-all? The school should enforce appropriate behavior within the school so the students know when they enter the school, they are held to a higher standard, and they need to talk appropriately and not being used foul language. They need to respect people, whether it's other students or adults. It's common sense, common knowledge, common courtesy. I don't know where things changed over these years, because I'm pretty sure when I was in high school, if we ever talked inappropriately or used foul language, we'd be sent to the principal's office pretty fast. I'm disappointed when I hear staff members state that some students are using sexual harassment language towards staff and students. When did this become acceptable behavior? How long has it been going on? Do you think disciplinary action should be put in place? Next up, bullying. Nothing seems to be rectified when bullying occurs. There needs to be something in place to discipline the bully and to help the student that's being bullied. I know firsthand nothing gets done. My kid has been bullied for 3 straight years by the same kids, and nothing has ever been done about it. He's been called gay, even though he isn't, so many times I can't even count. He's been shoved, pushed, tripped, hit, kicked, whatever it is. Nothing ever gets done. That is until I told him to take care of it himself. One suspension later, problem solved. Bullying issues need to be fixed. Finally, I'm challenging the board to direct the superintendent to do a thorough review of the middle school and high school libraries, and that RSU 14 is in violation of policy IJJ and MDOE Chapter 125, Rule 5.04, which states, resources shall be appropriate to the ages of children served by the school. I'll repeat that. Resources shall be appropriate to the age of children served by the school. Jordan Small Middle School librarian had restructured her library during COVID to be grouped by genre. That way students could find books they were looking for without having to weed through books that were not interesting to that student. When I had that meeting there, Christine agreed and thought it was a great idea. Maybe our librarian, the other librarian, should follow suit. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Scott T. McDonald. I'm from Wyndham, former student. Basically, people are saying it's against the LGBTQIA. It's not against the LGBTQIA. We want these books out of the library until they are reviewed. We do not want them, we're not banning a book. We're trying to get it under control because these books are not helping these students clearly. They do not do a darn thing for these kids. We're here week after week after week trying to get these books out, but no. You have Bonnie Eagle getting them out after one meeting of somebody going and asking, can you review these books? They do not come out here. Why is that? It's pathetic and ironic that this, I'll say, liberal town cannot do something correctly. Another thing I want to bring up is how people want to address the board clearly, which you can address the board, but you cannot address the community. But when people get yelled at for freedom of speech, there's people on this board who are telling people, oh, you cannot be talking directly to about somebody. That's freedom of speech, last I knew. And also, freedom of speech is not for a student, it's for adults. You need to learn how this happens, and history, which obviously is not being told, the Constitution, all this other stuff. It's not being told here, and these books need to get out because it's inappropriate for these kids to be learning. You don't need an 11-year-old kid up here reading a book because of something that was brought up and put on your bookshelf straight on there. They need to be told. There needs to be a set rule that you cannot be showing these books. And also, there is on some of the books, there is a secondary link about pornography being pornography links. They should not be exposed to a child because it's illegal. It clearly shows it on Google, as everybody wants to go on Google and say, oh, Google says this. Get these darn books out of the school. I'm sure everybody who's a parent on this school board does not want their kid reading it from when they're in 6th grade to when they're in 12th grade. It's something they learn throughout life as an adult.
Anybody else?
Justin Wynot from Wyndham. The mental health is on the line of the students of this town. There could be countless students affected by the decision made here tonight. You guys are entrusted with the community and the children of the community to do the right thing. Genderqueer is a book that has pages with pornography in it. There are pictures of minors giving blowjobs. There is a link in the book to kink.com. Now, if you really want to do your research, click on that. Maybe that'll help make up your mind. It is time to do the right thing, to stand up for these children and put them on a path where they can succeed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dawn Miller, Wyndham resident, mother of a middle schooler. Every meeting I attend, I hear the same concerns being voiced, and every meeting ends with the same result, which is the board does nothing to even try and rectify the situation at hand. There are several books at this point which have been deemed by many as containing inappropriate content, especially for middle schoolers who are aged 11 to 14. My daughter and I have had many conversations surrounding the issue. She's an avid reader and reads at a much higher grade level than the grade she's in. So finding appropriate content for her to read that keeps her engaged is hard enough. She's 12, and weeks ago, she said, the least they could do for the moment is label the books as containing sensitive or inappropriate content for some until they have all been reviewed. And then she continued with, and next year, why don't they send home some permission slips for the library with all the other paperwork that gets sent home during the first week? Parents can choose if their kids should have access to questionable material at the school library. This came from a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old who's scared to come to a meeting to tell you her big ideas because she's afraid of being bullied, because the bullying does go both ways. You're sitting up there because you've been elected by the people of this community to serve on that board. You're tasked with being leaders. I know every single one of you sitting up there are intelligent individuals, but your chance to be innovators fell by the wayside when a book was challenged on January 23rd, and we are just now on May 3rd making a decision, and not a single thing has been done to ease the concerns of parents in the meantime. This could have been handled differently and should have been, but it was very clear after one of the meetings that you had instituted a policy, IJJ, and you had no idea what was actually in that policy and how to follow it. I should also note that I have a family member who's been on a school board in another district for over 20 years. They mentioned that policy, also IJJ, does not require them to seek legal advice when a book is challenged. In fact, their superintendent bought them each a copy of a book that was challenged so they could all review it before a decision was made. They made a decision, and not once did they consult their lawyer, which I would like to point out eats into school budget and taxpayer dollars big time. So while you have dug your heels in and hid behind a policy that apparently reads like a foreign language, these books have remained on the shelves for kids to stumble upon. I got to hear a few weeks ago how one of my daughter's friends picked up Flamer in the library, having no idea what the book was about or what was inside. She was mortified when she flipped through those pages. It made her extremely uncomfortable. This isn't the first story I've heard about her peers picking up or checking out books that look like a nice fun read from the cover until they get into the pages and realize there are things in there they can't unsee. School libraries should be a safe space for everyone, and right now that is not the case. Someone got up and spoke last week and basically said it's no big deal, these books are accessible because kids say much worse in the halls and in class. That does not make it okay. Do better. We should all want better for the children. That starts with leading by example. Our family dinner with my parents ended on Sunday with my daughter saying, I would just like to be able to go to the school library, pick up a book, and not have to worry about opening it up and seeing a wiener. She is 12. I don't think her ask is too big here. I think we've lost sight of the fact that these are children. They are minors, and it is our job to lead them in the right direction. We can all do better. Doing nothing is no longer an option. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Jennifer White. I sent an email to the board. I still have not received answers to some of the questions I had regarding the meeting last week. I heard that the librarian that was on the IJJ committee was the one who brought the book Genderqueer into the school library, and I have not received a yay or a nay on that, if that was true or not. I'm still waiting to hear. I hope that's not true, because if it is true, that's very biased, and in my opinion, you should not have had that librarian on this committee. Also, I'd like to know what website was used when they did the book review summary and found that it was sound data inappropriate for minors for ages 12 and above. To be honest, I mean, I just think back when I was in college and when I did research, we had to really do our research. Anybody can go on to Google, go on to a book review website and look at book reviews. And if that's all this IJJ committee did, that's an embarrassment to this community. It's really a disappointment. I'm going to try not to get emotional, but we've had enough. I'm tired of being called names that we hate people. We don't hate people. We love our children. Is that a crime? That's not a crime. We want the best for this community. And you guys, it just seems like a lot of you are not listening. We need to know that you're hearing us. When there is a porn website link on a book, it's wrong. It's wrong. I don't care. You cannot say it's right. It's not okay. And you can say, well, you know, you can opt your child out. No, that's not true. Maybe in theory. My daughter went to Raymond Middle School. She was a gifted, talented student. The librarian had book lists that were recommended for her to read, met with her. Oh, well, you know what? You're way above your grade level, and this is what the recommendations are. Let's go find these books for you. Very fortunately, we are involved, and we checked those books out. One had over 500 swear words in it, mostly the F word. She was in 5th or 6th grade. Is that okay? because my daughter's gifted and talented that she's given that kind of reading material? That's terrible. I'm sorry, it's terrible. Just to even stand up here, that's just the beginning. I could go on and on, but I won't. Because some of her teachers have been wonderful.
Your time has concluded.
I'm not speaking badly.
Concluded.
Yes.
Your time is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, shut my microphone off. That's why we get angry. It's disrespectful.
Anyone else?
How's it going, y'all? My name is Nolan Hansen, Wyndham High School. The left is only concerned about one of these books. These parents are talking about many books, not just genderqueer. I don't see why they can't be removed from the school. No student should have these books pushed into their face. None of this is right. We need to do something about this.
Anyone else?
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Napolitano from Wyndham. The genderqueer book is available outside the school. It does not prevent bullying. There are no case studies that the book saves lives. The book does not support the current school curriculum. And the book committee didn't mention the porn website that the book refers to. Why did they not mention that? I think that's a very important detail. They totally blew by that. I mean, have you asked yourself that question? They were appointed to go and look at this book in detail and give a report to you, and they failed to do that. That is very troubling to me. So what other solutions are there? All right, so I've been critical, Kate, of you, particularly with the policy committee and the lack of urgency that I've seen since this book challenge came out in January. And I wanted to see more urgency. And I know you've said, I'm not policy. I know you're not policy. You are the person that controls the agenda on this board. And you can put on the agenda to have a discussion. We really don't know a lot about what the board members' opinions are. It's kind of, they've all been kind of held back. And that's why I've been critical, because I haven't seen the urgency. This is serious stuff, and we do love our children. So I'd like to hear more solutions. I have not heard many solutions at all. Actually, none. You know, so we're just pushing this right through. So it takes what started January, now we're in May. So if we challenge 200 books with the current IJJ process, and there are a lot of books in this school that need to be challenged, we're talking 83 years. So you might as well put that on the new. You put that on the new job description for people that join the school board, because it's going to be like this forever, as long as you have those books in this school. So it's time to vote on book number 1. Will you choose to protect all children and clean up the library, starting with book 1, or are you going to choose team politics and overlook what is really happening here? The book has pornographic images. So you need to decide what you want to put your name and face on. Do you want to choose safety, or do you want to choose that you're pushing porn? Thank you.
My name is Frank Emery. I'm from Raymond. Yesterday I was in Augusta, as well as hundreds of folks that were there to show support for defeating an abortion bill. I know there's a bunch of folks here that were there yesterday. There were about 2,200 people there that were protesting against stuff that's wrong. Today I'm here in support of getting rid of some of the books that are in the library. I know a good bit of my tax money goes to the school budget, and I'm sad to know that you choose to use some of it to purchase books that can do serious harm to students. We hear these books are helpful to some, but if a student checks one out, takes it home, will it be safe from younger siblings? Is little Ricky going to find it after seeing some of those so-called helpful things, invite his neighbor Timmy over for some PBR? They don't drink Bud Light anymore. But they have a group walk while the folks are away. So yesterday was to save the unborn And today, I'm here trying to save the innocent. The innocent. The facts are clear. Suicide is almost 3 times higher for these children than in other teens. Do you want to take the chance? Do your job, protect our kids, get the books that might help them to learn, like history, or reading, or economics. Get rid of these stupid books.
Anybody else wish to speak? I don't see any move. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Jean Fisk, Wyndham. The last 2 times I spoke, I mentioned my personal experience working with individuals who held degrees of higher education. These individuals, regardless, can function adequately or inadequately. What really matters is not what degree the person has earned, but rather the degree of common sense. As school board members, what power do you have to address the concerns of the parents and, more importantly, the welfare of our children? Obviously, you must see the dangers of keeping these harmful books in our schools and exposing innocent minds to them. If you are unable to help our students for the better, then why remain on the school board? What beneficial purpose do you even have? A few of the junior high students who have spoken in favor of the books said the books help them. How? How can they? No, it's more about popularity and the new unhealthy culture our society is being exposed to today. So, school board, if your hands are tied and you do not have the courage to speak and speak out for the benefit of our students, then what is the reason for remaining on the board? I'd like to add, all 3 of my children graduated from Wyndham High School. And because the way education is managed today, all 3 of my children are homeschooling their children. I'd like to challenge the Wyndham School Board to dare to make a difference, and please dare to be different.
Any final public comment?
Adam Zajac, Wyndham. 4 months ago, I was here standing up, speaking out about genderqueer. And I kept saying, it takes 4 months to pull a book out of here. And Kate, you kept disagreeing and saying, no, it doesn't take 4 months. Look at where we are 4 months later. Right now, we're arguing this book still. I wish you could take this much time to get books into the library as long as it takes to get these books out. So you guys are really showing us how terribly state and federal programs work in this country. I can't even imagine that we're still up here right now debating this. There's going to be a reckoning here soon, and you can either be on the right side of this history that's coming, or you can be on the wrong side. And right now, you guys are really on the wrong side of it. It's clear that the people don't want this. The majority don't want this woke ideology happening, and you guys are still pushing it. Look at what happened to Budweiser. Look what happened to Nike. All these corporations that are failing right now because of what they're standing for. You guys need to wake up.
Anyone else?
Hey guys, I'm Ewan O'Shea and I'm the neurodivergent nightmare. I'm a freshman at Wyndham High School and I come up here with my PhD in being a disappointment to say that you guys are obviously in a position where you know what you're talking about. You all have worked a lot to get into these places and I respect you for that. I trust that you know what you're doing because chances are none of us know, or none of us here know fully about whatever is being discussed here. There's always a piece of context or information that cannot be given, have it be through confidentiality or other means, and it is no place for me to try and pretend that I fully know about what I'm talking about because I absolutely do not know everything. So for that, I hope you guys keep up the good work. However, I would like to get one thing straight, at least from my perspective. Do not, under any circumstances, do anything to students like me for their well-being. The only person I feel comfortable accepting this type of stuff from is from my own mother, and I can and will refuse it from others without hesitation. The people trying to do this are from a different generation. They were raised in a different time. They have different values. Things that may have helped them may not work for us. Obviously, this is not entirely true. Many things still hold up over the course of a few decades, but getting rid of some books is not one of them. I do not care. We are not as affected by this as much as people may think we do. Stop trying to make it out like it is. You do not know who I really am or what I really want because people like me are much too scared to tell any of you.
Any further public comment? I'm Christine Emery from Raymond. Those of you who support leaving these books in the school library are leading children down a very dark path. One common thread that I hear mentioned among the students who speak up here is thoughts of suicide. I remember years ago, a group of us received permission to walk through the halls of this very school and pray because a young student had committed suicide. The lockers were covered with very sad words expressed by so many of his fellow students. I'll never forget that experience. Obviously, the students were all affected by this tragedy. The students here today need counselors who are equipped to help them. And if these books in question really do help them, then let a counselor decide and let the counselor hand the book out as opposed to having them available to all. The students who are at risk deserve the best help they can get. If you really value them, you can show them by placing the right trained professional counselors here. The consequences of not taking this action will be extremely detrimental to the students who are at risk. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Danny Davis, and I'm a Wyndham resident. And I object to the school's gender-related counseling for minors. These are ideologies, and they're dangerous for children. They alienate parents from their children, and I also object to the school's social-emotional learning curriculum while it involves critical race theory and gender theory. This part of SEL removes the ability for parents to parent their children when and how they feel is best, and through their family morals and values. This part of SEL removes the innocence from our youth. This book is all part of it. Kids need respect, boundaries, accountability, confidence, knowledge, standards, discipline, goals, and reality. From what I'm hearing from the million parent chats I'm involved in, parents and also teachers both feel like the kids are running the show, and a lot of these things that they need have been thrown out the window. Children are being treated like adults, and adults like children. I can confidently tell you that a small group that wants to keep these books and gender theory in our schools. Parents, business owners, employees, teachers, and students who also object to having this are afraid to speak up as they know they will be targeted, silenced, and even worse, they fear they could be fired. We need to replace a few of the seats on the board that are available this year. They are the boss of the superintendent, which also needs to be replaced. We need to revise policies and curriculum. We need to bring back parent transparency and involvement. And as you can see with our current leaders, they don't care about these things. Money or something else means more to them. If we don't stop and we keep growing our efforts and awareness, we will make a positive difference. School's coming to an end, but we need to make a difference starting with the school board elections this year. At this point, the false accusations and labels are laughable and bother me none. And my friends, myself, and my family know who I am, why, and how I'm doing this. So label me, I don't care. I'm confident, I'm comfortable, and I'm proud of what I'm doing for our kids. And I also want to mention one more time, let's not forget about this book, Directing You to Kink.com, a hardcore porn website. Thank you.
Any further comment? I don't see any movement, so I'm closing public comment. Thank you. I'm sorry, you've already. I'm sorry, your time is up. We're moving on.
I am a licensed social worker, and I make a difference in junior highs with children, junior high students, and I would be willing to help and volunteer my time to help these students.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, you should definitely take her information.
I'd love for her to send me the information. We're going to move into item 8, superintendent's report.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm not too loud here. So first of all, I want to start by an introduction to everyone. Officer Fournier, who was the Windham High School resource officer, is now Sergeant Fournier for the Windham Police Department. And Officer Lee Mayer, who is up in the back of the room, will be the new SRO at Windham High School. So Lee, welcome to RSU 14. Had a chance on Monday night to attend the art show, and like what was said in public comment tonight, it was absolutely fantastic to have that event back. Believe it or not, that is the last event that's been restored to the district post-COVID. It has been a number of years since we've been able to do that, and it was absolutely outstanding. First of all, to have all sorts of families back into the Windham High School 300 wing to view the art that students had done, but also to hear from the chamber singers and also the Windham Middle School chorus. Absolutely wonderful, all the student art. Also had a wonderful moment in the kind of grand staircase area when I looked at one young lady and she was doing an amazing piece of art, and then looked across the table at another young lady doing an amazing piece of art, and then looked and they were twins, but it took me a minute to figure out the two were. I didn't catch their names, but absolutely outstanding artists that were there showing off their works. In addition, just a big shout out to the student who created the puppet and the other piece that's there. Her amazing talent has now earned her some scholarship opportunities for her ability to exercise her art and her vision. And so just an absolutely amazing art show. So it will be available after school for anybody in the community who wants to go and tour that. It's a good opportunity to see all the work. And again, a big thank you to all of our art teachers. The amount of time that it takes to curate and put all of those materials up for the community to be able to see that, absolutely amazing. Last night we had the opportunity to have a community forum and ask some questions about the new middle school project for RSU 14. It was nice to have our partners from LaValle Brendinger Architects who were with us, and probably about 30 community members who were able to come, have an overview, have a chance to take a look at all that's happening with that project. We're anticipating at this point that when late June, we'll be inviting the community in for a straw poll, and simply what a straw poll is a public meeting. Come in, raise your hands for determining the site where we'd like to place the new middle school. So be looking for that probably 1st of June as those final things. We're hoping for July to have the site approved by the Maine Department of Education, the Maine State School Board, so that we'll be able to then start moving forward with some final design for our November referendum. Also want to bring everyone's attention to the public budget meeting this year is on May 17th. That will be in the Windham High School auditorium. For board members, step 1 of the budget was you approving it back in April. Step 2 is that May 17th budget meeting, and then step 3, I think it's June 13th this year, was election day. That's an opportunity for the public to come and talk about the budget and learn a little bit more about it. In addition, just want to congratulate Victoria Levitt and Isabella Clapp from Windham High School. Both are recognized in the Margaret Chase Smith Library Essay Contest. And specifically, they were writing on the proper roles of government responding to issues of climate change. And so Victoria was second place, and Isabella Clapp had an honorable mention in that competition. So it's great to see 2 students, it was actually the only school to have 2 students being recognized in that competition for their writing work. So congratulations to them. In addition, and I know there's been great conversations about the library, and we want to provide parents with as much information for students and what books that they have out. We have taken a look at the capabilities of Infinite Campus, and being able to get information in that is proving to be more difficult than we thought. Follett, which is the library system, does not have a portal, much like other things do. So the best way for parents to be able to go in, see what their students have taken out is through students' Google Classroom accounts. Any parents who would like to have help getting their students' Google ID and their password, please reach out to building principals, and we will make sure that you have that information so that you can take a look at what has been checked out for, what's currently checked out within the library for your student. I know there's been some questions about how do I go about seeing that and doing that. In addition, for any parents that are interested, also free to reach out. Internet history, search history, any of those items on student-issued laptops. Opportunity to do that also through that Google sign-in and through that Google password. So some opportunities, if that's some information that you're looking for, please reach out for that. And I think that's it for items.
Thank you very much. We're going to move into committee reports. Let's start with finance.
I'll go ahead with finance. Finance had a chance to meet last Wednesday night prior to the board meeting. We talked about a number of different things. First thing being just spending year to date and where we're at. And as I shared with the board, we are currently overexpended within our facilities. And that is directly due to some construction challenges that we ran into when I say we, Bill Hansen was working on components of the Field Allen School. In addition, some extra expenses that have come through with an unexpected boiler this year for that particular building. We do have some opportunity to move some lines from some different accounts, so we will still end the year where we need to end the year. We also had a chance to talk about some of the capital projects that will be put before the public on the May 17th budget night, which includes some information and some funding for Raymond Elementary School HVAC. We've got some initial work that's going up there. In addition, we have some parking work and paving work and some traffic distribution work that will be happening up on the Manchester campus. So we had a chance to walk through those components, and then we also spent a lot of time talking about where we are with some grant programs, and then finishing up with, as we look to close out the year, at this point does not look like we're going to have a huge surplus as far as unexpended fund balance. And so as far as board typically looked at any possible year-end spending, and we're actually going to keep that to an absolute minimum this year based upon where we are.
Thank you. We're going to move into facilities.
Facilities has not met.
Okay. And I don't believe the construction committee has met, and you've already talked about the meeting we had last night.
Yeah, construction hasn't met, and part of the reason they haven't met for a little bit is that 1st of April, the project went out to the cost estimators, and before the committee can go much further, They really need to have some feedback on what they propose and what they've discussed as a committee. How much is it going to cost? And so once those numbers come back in a couple of weeks, we'll have the opportunity for the construction committee to come back and meet and then look at some of the things that they propose. Can the district actually afford them, or will they be looking to pull some items back?
Perfect, thank you. Policy did not meet this week. We met last week. We continue to work on IJJ. Our work involves splitting IJJ into two components, one specific to curriculum and the other specific to library, and we're working through processes for each. Combining them, we've learned, as we've all learned, there's some work to be done to make it clearer, and so we thought dividing it in two with different processes for selection would be important. We're looking internally with librarians and other staff members as to how we create a format to really be specific about the criteria for book selection. So the work is ongoing, and we will keep you abreast of what's cooking. Anything from curriculum?
So curriculum met this Monday. We met with the gifted and talented teachers and world language teachers and discussed their successes, barriers, and what they wish they could have. Tomorrow, the website will be updated, and we'll be getting together soon for a new schedule for next year.
Thank you. Anything from technology?
I hope I got a good mic tonight. Yes, we met, and lots going on there. So let me start. Might remember that technology's broken into 3 different groups. And okay, let me try and capture some of it. There's a lot of detail here, so if any of the team wants to have more detail, there's a really great summary document that can be shared with any of the board members that goes through every meeting and the details and all the links that each group is working on. So there's a ton of detail, but I'll just give you kind of the top lines. So Christine Hessler reported out on the group that really works around tech integration and curriculum about testing, so ELA and math, and for science, really talking about the accommodations and all the work that had gone into staff and on the tech side related to the testing. A new pilot for grade 4 and grade 2 typing clubs, so we're excited about that. Heard some great things about that. Talking about digital citizenship website, adding some K-2 lessons from Common Sense Media, getting some communication out with staff, obviously with respect to technology. It's gathering information back in and then also putting information back out. So everything that they're doing is constantly working, evaluating, and then putting software and tech out, but then education of the staff is a key component to that piece for curriculum integrating with technology. And then just some discussions about tech integrators and some training for new staff coming in the fall. Another group just talking about a little bit of data or information on student privacy data agreements. The RSU 14 resource page, is that something that's public or is that something internal? Chris, is public? Okay, so there's RSU 14's resource page. Staff and parents can see what software has current privacy data agreements. So there was some discussion around that and keeping that up to date, something that the tech team really works hard to be diligent about and making sure that those privacy data agreements are signed and up to date for all software that's used in the district. Let's see here, some discussion about Parent Square. I think I've talked about Parent Square a little bit before, some progress on Parent Square. Just a quick reminder, is an update platform that would be used for staff, community members, parents to get data from the district. And so we use newspaper, we use the website, we use email, we use texting, we use a number of ways to communicate with the community. And there's a lot of information that gets communicated just to parents, but there's also a ton of information that needs to go out to the community and different levels to do that. So the vision with the district right now is to move forward with Parent Square and to replace a number of platforms, working through into the fall to improve communications across both communities to parents, and then also internally as well. And that comes down to scheduling parent-teacher conferences and the different ways that we communicate. So you'll hear more about that as that progresses. So that's, in my view, a great news story. Okay, so there was a lot of discussion in the group that I participated in hardware and software around artificial intelligence and how the district will approach that. Certainly there's some tremendous benefits around artificial intelligence as it relates to looking at tools for things like multi-language learners and translations that can help with the different dialects and the challenges that we have in that area. But also it gives us the I think the challenge generally to look at what our policies will be and how that software and what our approach the district will take around AI. So there's a lot of good discussion about that. A little bit of discussion about some of the, what are they called? Intelligence boards? What are they? The Promethean? What are they called? Interactive flat panels, thank you. So some just discussion about new ones, what are we doing with the current ones, and maybe trying out a new platform. So that's what I have from technology. But like I said, it's super detailed, a ton of people working on different teams, and if you're interested in learning the specifics, just ask for that document, and it's going to give you everything you could ever wish for in technology.
Thank you. We're going to move into adult ed. Okay.
We have not met. There you go.
Great, thank you. Vocational hasn't met. You're going to be taking that on now that you're on board. Okay, good. Last but certainly not least.
Yes, I got some stuff. Today was ACES Day at the high school, which is all children exercising simultaneously. So a bunch of teachers got the opportunity to create unique learning opportunities, and students got to sign up for these various events, which was super awesome. The quiz show team has officially made it to the semifinals, so that episode will be airing in, yeah, thank you. That'll be airing in a couple weeks. I don't have the exact date for that. It's not tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. It's also AP testing week is this week and next week, so good luck to all the people who are currently testing. Prom is this Saturday, so thank you to the junior class for putting all their hard work into that. And thank you to everyone who went to the art show and bought something from the student council table. We made $180, which is awesome because we were not, it was like a super last minute fundraiser, so big $180 in one night is pretty awesome. So thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We're going to move into item 10, board roundtable. Anyone wish to share anything? Go ahead.
So first, I want to thank everyone. Not the microphone, that's for sure. Okay, for all the emails and public comments. I know that this last week especially, I have read and reread all of them. I am astounded by the middle and high school students that have commented and emailed. I have to say that it is amazing how articulate and well thought out they are. It is a true testament to the education you have received from teachers and parents. Next week is Teacher Appreciation Week, for Wyndham at least. I know that the Wyndham PTA has planned out a whole week of goodies, and Jody might know more about Raymond. Please try to sign up to donate. If that is not possible, just a note of appreciation. I'm sure they'd like that. All our teachers go above and beyond. Now more than ever, it's important to recognize the RSU 14 staff for their hard work. Over the last few weeks, I've heard many accounts of staff members being too scared to introduce a book or subject to their classroom for fear that they will be defamed on social media sites. They should feel safe doing their jobs, which is to educate our children. They can't do that job if they are worried everything they say or read is overanalyzed and messages misconstrued. Let's stop dragging people through the mud and talk this out and be thankful for the people who actually like hanging out with our children on a daily basis, because I know I look forward to the peace and quiet when they go to school. My favorite part I know it's a lot of work for the teachers, but is parent-teacher conferences. Being able to meet and get to know the person your child talks about daily and see your child how your teacher sees them. I always find it helpful and be able to see what they need to work on and what we as parents can do to help them. Open communication with the teachers, parents, and your student is crucial to having a great school year. So I just want to thank all the teachers and staff for doing what you do daily and helping to shape the people they will become, especially since they are our future. Never underestimate the power of an encouraging word.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So over the past weeks, we've heard a lot of stories from a great many people in our communities. The theme that's been coming across that's troubling to me, not only as a parent, but as a school board member, is the often referenced having to go to a safe space, that there's safe spaces in the schools. That's troubling that our schools need safe spaces. I don't know who else thinks that's troubling, but I do. I think that's a problem. The amount of bullying that we're hearing about amongst children is not okay. Bullying has been around forever, we all know that, but it seems that it is ratcheting up amongst students. Inappropriate conduct. We've heard in recent weeks that children in the schools use inappropriate language, not only at each other, but at staff and teachers, which is extremely not okay. And that they use it with each other, not okay. So, you know, in my profession, I live by our company's code of conduct and our culture. And a lot of the things that I've heard in past weeks, if that occurred in a workplace, that person at a minimum would be terminated from employment. So that makes me wonder, what do we need to do as a board to ensure that we're bringing up kids that will be, their behavior and conduct will be acceptable in a workplace, and that we'd have staff and teachers that want to work in our schools? We had one last week, I think it was last week, that said that a student said, she asked him to do something, and he said, well, why don't you sit on my wiener? Or something to that effect. And I was horrified. If I went to work and had people I worked with talk to me like that wouldn't be okay. And we can't make it okay for our community, can't make it okay for our schools. It is something that we as a board need to work with administration on to get it fixed. It's not okay. On another note, the amount of citizen involvement that we've seen in the last 2.5, almost 3 years now, in our communities is frankly breathtaking. From all sides, the people that are actually getting motivated to get off their couch and make time to come to meetings. The guidance that I have for folks is that getting involved locally is great, but you can only really affect local change when you go to Augusta. Our hands are tied by the laws and regulations and policies that are handed down from Augusta. So you need to pay attention. You need to see what the legislature is working on, what the people in our bureaucracies are working on, and what policies that they are promulgating. A lot of it I personally don't agree with, and I need to make a better effort at getting involved. But that is my suggestion to everyone, because this is our community, this is our lives, and we need to take control of it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Two things. This is hard. Pardon me for getting close. First of all, I wanted to start with a couple of items that had been brought up at previous board meetings. One was a couple of community members thought that our teachers needed a salary increase. Well, I agree. I think that would be a great idea. Negotiations will be going on next year, so we'll definitely take that into account. Another thing that a community member mentioned was the policy about public input. And the person was saying or wondering about limiting the involvement of public comment to those who lived or worked in our communities. We as a board discussed that in the last year or so. I couldn't find it for the actual date, but we decided we wanted to hear from more than just those in the community. So that's really good. Something else that we might want to look at some point with that was somehow to make it a little more efficient, maybe with the sign up or seeing what others do in other districts. Also, I wondered about what other districts might do for citizens who were continually out of order. And that's just a question, I don't know. I also wanted to mention how fabulous the art show was. It was on Monday, and it was absolutely wonderful. There is a school board day coming up at the State House, and I went last year, and I'm planning on going again, and if any other board members would like to go, it's a good experience. You get a chance to see the House chamber, the Senate chamber, get introduced a little bit, not individually, but as a group, and so it's definitely a good experience. Okay, then, I also have been very impressed with the students who have spoken out at our board meetings. We need to believe what they say. That is happening in our schools. It's troubling, as others have said, how the bullying and harassing has been higher, it seems, and especially this barking. In my opinion, this is an all-time low with my 40 years worth of public education as an educator. I did a little research to find out more about this barking at members of the LGBTQ+ community. And it seems that it's been happening for the last couple of years, both here in the US and abroad. It seems to have spread through TikTok, like a lot of other things. For our information, there was a lawsuit brought against a school district in Connecticut in August of 2022 for discriminating against and failing to protect LGBTQ students. Part of this included chronic bullying that students reported, but the claim states that it was either mishandled or not fully investigated. All of us need to make sure that any complaints of bullying or harassment are taken seriously, investigated, and the students who are bullying or harassing their classmates are held responsible. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Trevor Project. It's a nonprofit that was founded in 1998, focusing on suicide prevention efforts among youth in the LGBTQ community. Earlier this week, they posted something on Facebook. I just happened to see it. It rolled through as a sponsored ad. And here's a quote. At a time when LGBTQ existence is unfairly at the center of national political debate, our 2023 national survey on the mental health of LGBTQ young people shows the urgency of ensuring that they feel safe, supported, and belonged. For the 5th consecutive year, we know that experiencing anti-LGBTQ stigma, whether in their home, at school, or seeing hateful rhetoric in the news, can contribute to high rates of mental health challenge and suicide risk. Yet, many LGBTQ young people continue to face barriers in accessing mental health care. We can do better. By creating affirming spaces, respecting pronouns, and generally learning about LGBTQ identities and topics, these simple acts of respect and love can ensure that LGBTQ young people know that they're never alone and can always find support from their family and friends. Building a better world for LGBTQ starts with every one of us, unquote. No one deserves to be bullied or harassed for who they are, who they like, or what they believe. We can and must do better. We all need to remember that students and staff in our district are watching and listening to these meetings. Since January, we have heard frequent heckling and disrespectfulness from some members of the community. Respect goes both ways. Everyone wants to be heard. I challenge all of us to truly listen, especially listening to those with whom we disagree. Everything we hear and should be a learning experience. I challenge all of us to learn something from each other, not just tonight, but every day. No matter what the decision the board makes later tonight, there'll be some who'll be disappointed and maybe angry. How each of us reacts to a decision with which we disagree shows our character or lack of character. From policy BBAA item 6, the duty and obligation of each board member is to, quote, to accept the will of the majority vote in all cases and give wholehearted support to the resulting policy, unquote, whether we agree or disagree with the decision. Again, respect goes two ways.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just wanted to, again, like everyone else, thank everyone for their continued coming and their input in the emails. We certainly appreciate hearing from all of you and are thankful that you are so invested in the education that our children are receiving. I also am taken aback by the safe spaces in the high school. You'll see signs that say safe spaces, which implies that there are spaces in the school that are not safe. And then I also want to ensure that there are support for all students, not just specific groups. I think it's important that we offer that across the table for everyone. You know, I struggle with that part of it because I want to make sure, you know, that my blonde hair, blue-eyed little girl gets support just like any other student does from all backgrounds and all groups. I hadn't really planned on saying anything tonight, but just kind of the general comments that I hear about the bullying is that it is an issue. I was bullied when I was in middle school and high school as well, so you know, we've all been there. And it really does take away from a high school experience, and children are young and innocent, and you don't see beyond high school when you're in high school. You just see your little bubble, and to go beyond that is where things, I think, become more real, where you can find yourself and explore. But after high school is kind of where that happened for me. But thank you for everyone for coming and being here. We're in it together. We're all parents and we're in it together. We all want the best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, so a couple things. Kate, I'm going to reserve comment on anything related to gender queer. There's an opportunity for us to have discussion on that agenda item. Okay. Staff appreciation this week, next week. It should be every week, right? I mean, I send my 3 kiddos to school with a lot of joy as well, Jess. So have recently served on the PTO. It's a nonprofit organization out of Raymond. Full disclosure, I've been on the board there, so I'm just going to give a shameless plug for this place. Just a great team of people like the PTA here in Windham as well. So I want to say thank you to that team, and we had the opportunity to share some of our Raymond staff over to Windham today, so the PTA took care of some of our staff over here, so we thank them so much for that. And also we were able to put together a lunch for the staff in the Raymond schools that were back at Jordan Small and then at Raymond Elementary, and of course on a Wednesday, half day there, nice hot lunch. I destroyed my kitchen with chili at 6:30 this morning, so big thank you there, and happy Staff Appreciation Week. Last night we had the build update. I just wanted to say thank you to Chris for putting that together. Not always a lot of people in the room in these meetings, but I I think it's terrific that we're putting forward that effort with the architect, offering the public the opportunity to come. Several community members were there last night expressing concerns about their property, privacy, and it really does give a great chance for people who have more of a vested interest to really follow the process. So thank you for doing that. For the public, there's a website on the middle school build, and it is up to date with just minutes and all that kind of stuff, but it also has the video presentations and all the PowerPoints. So if that's important to you, please visit the website. We recognize coming out last night, certainly with the rain, you know, it's not always convenient to do that, but thanks for doing that, Chris. Kate, I know that we've been talking a little bit about this as a team. New to this team is long history there, and I respect the work that you've done long-standing, and Marge as well, around, you know, communication and really working through the agendas. We've talked a little bit about the idea of connecting with the public. I think Parrott Square is going to do a nice job of that in the future and give us the opportunity to almost do like a did you know, kind of a frequently asked questions thing, but I just want to continue to ask to think about ways that we can interact with the public in a way that is, we have restraints for agenda, topic items, and our business, and we're stacked tonight's a great example of that, but just asking for us to continue to figure out ways that we can interact with the public in some way, and I don't know if that's in forums or what that looks like. It's something we've talked about on email, but I think it's so impactful. I'll speak for myself, to talk to somebody, and I just do continue to find that so tough. You've been really great about acknowledging it and trying to figure out with our restrictions how we do it, but just if we can continue the conversation, I think it's important. And that just might be part of our board responsibilities as far as public relations, and it's not just around current topics, it's just proactively talking about things like our school build, where we had one last night. That's a perfect example. We set the agenda, we have a time, and then we have some ability to have a reciprocal conversation. I just think that's really important and powerful. So thanks for continuing that conversation. One thing that came out last night, and I think this is also really important to say, is that the work that our Assistant Superintendent Christine has done, opening up a new school from a middle school perspective. I'm not sure if this is really that obvious, but in a few years what's going to happen is our capacity increases in grade 5 in the new middle school will allow us to offer pre-K through the whole district. We have a wait list of over 100, is it 100 and... 67 on the wait list. So that gives us the opportunity to add pre-K to the district with the new middle school opening, and I think that's really terrific thing. Just want to say that as well. It's a little detail in the weeds. And just one last thing, working on policy, we're working on it. We got into what I would call, we had a really great productive meeting last week, but there's a lot of detail here, and we got into a rabbit hole that was not productive. It was just, we're trying to really sort out all the detail. So we're working on it. It's not, we're not dragging our feet. It's just, there's a lot of people that need to come to these meetings, and they're long. So we are working on it. And there's been some allegations. I just want to clear up. We have had no legal advice to date on genderqueer or anything to do with this particular committee. We have not accessed or had any legal advice at all. And there's been a ton of accusations about that. We're working as a team and as a board, and we're working through the process as it exists right now. So I think it's important to say that if it's implied that we're not doing what we're supposed to do because the lawyers are holding us back, that's just not factual. And I just want to say that out loud. Okay. And that's available on FOA, so feel free to make any requests. That's all I had for board roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I promise I will be brief. I know everybody for speeches, but again, okay, I have the crap. Okay, I think I've got it working. But anyway, thank you so much for everybody who comes, whether you're for or against, it doesn't matter. The only thing that's sad, I think, about this whole thing is that it took this instance to people to come start coming to our meetings. Over the years, we've had meetings, and as much as we want the public to get involved, there's very, very, very few people who show up at the meetings. So I would hope, not in contentious or anything else, that I hope people keep continuing to come to our meetings, basically to see what happens, what goes on. And I want to thank all the rest of the board members, because I know the public is not aware. We do the report outs on the committees, and I don't think the people are fully aware of how much time the board puts in on all of those committees. Because we do care. It's very important what happens in our schools. We love our teachers, we love our staff, we love our kids. We want the best for everybody. It's all I can really tell you. There is nothing spiteful, meanful. I mean, nobody is trying to really get anybody upset. I know people are passionate about what's happening at the moment. But again, I'd like to echo what someone else said down there, is that whatever happens, please just accept it. Because like anything else, it's amazing. You wouldn't believe the stuff that we have to accept, because there are some things that we just don't have control over. And to echo my buddy down there, it's kind of like you folks really need to get more involved with what happens up in Augusta. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to move into item number 11, public comment for Title I application. I'd like to welcome Christine Hessler, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Good evening, everyone.
Does that work?
Is it on? Thank you for having me again. This is my annual check-in with all of you. For the public to understand, we come once a year to give public notice. The Department of Education releases pre-allocated funds for our title programs. This includes Title I, Title II, and Title IV. So I'm going to walk you through what we have proposed as our plan to spend these funds for the upcoming school year. So first of all, in Title I, this allocation this year, we actually have a $41,000 increase from over last year. We're looking at $506,866 to service Title I students. Our projects include homelessness and supplemental instruction for literacy, supplemental instruction for mathematics, and also our family engagement nights at Title I, which we've been sharing with the board this year. We've been able to bring back in person. I am grateful for the number of board members and community that have come up and celebrated and learned with us side by side with our students. Title I pays for all of our salaries and benefits of our educational technicians that work with our students who are in the Title I program, and that is stretched across 3 of our elementary schools. Our Title II allocation came in a slight increase over $2,000. Our preliminary allocation is $119,154. Out of the Title II funds, we fund a project called Class Reduction. That's at the Wyndham Primary School. We pay a salary and benefits for one of our kindergarten teachers so that we're able to keep our class sizes small. Our last title that we receive funding for is a Title IV, and that's student support and enrichment. Our allocation this year is up $8,000. So our allocation looking at FY24 is $49,855. So in order for us to meet the needs of our students in Title I, we transfer those funds into Title I for a larger amount. What we're looking at this year, as you know as a board, there is negotiations in our support staff contracts. So what we do when we have a final number for supports and benefits, we will look at the number of staff that we need to service under Title I. I would love to thank the board also publicly, because when we fall short in Title I funds, it sounds like a lot of money, but when we fall short to service our students, you have always provided funds to keep the title people in their buildings, and you funded that locally. So an example of that is Raymond Elementary School has not qualified due to free and reduced lunch numbers. I'm happy to say that the board has funded those positions and we have not lost a step or a person at Raymond Elementary. And I'm excited to announce to you, and I will have further details, that the Department of Education, working with the federal government, is deciding a new formula. So it will not be those free and reduced forms. As all of you know, all students get free and reduced lunch. They all get free lunch, and so you can't use those numbers. And so they are coming up with a formula which sounds great to be able to service all our students and determine which schools have title funds available. They're also anticipating this will keep a steady stream, so we don't have years where all 3 of our schools qualify and then 1 year they don't. So this will keep us, so we're able to do some trend planning as we move into the future. So we're excited to receive these funds. We're excited to plan. I can't express to you the amount of excitement we've had at our Title I Family Nights. Our staff have gone over and above, working with students, working with schedules, assisting students who need a little bit of a boost in the academic areas. So also in this public input, you have until May 15, any member of the public or the board or a staff. Please I welcome your emails on any comments of how we spend these funds. We take a look at those after May 15th, and the application for me to start creating begins on June 1, and we will go through that process this summer. So, any questions from the board? Marge? Oops, sorry, Kate.
Oh, here we go. Okay, it's working. You said there was going to be a new form.
Yeah.
Is that going to totally take the place of the free and reduced?
Yes. So no one has to fill out a form.
Okay.
It will be calculated with Jeannie Riley. It's called a direct cert number, and it's information that's gathered across the state. And so they'll use those numbers plus a 1.6 multiplier to decide on how that works.
Okay. Now, I know this is out of your realm, but you might know the answer.
Try.
Okay. We have not been able to give the summer lunch program because we haven't had enough an area that fell within the realm. How is this going to work? Could we get that back again?
Possibly. We have another meeting next week, so they are working through, because, again, Marge, we couldn't do the program because of those numbers. If our direct cert comes back at a certain level, they're trying to do is to make it accessible to more schools. So more to come on that. I know we meet next week, so you're welcome.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? Part of that is also due to National School Lunch Program feeding rules, whether or not things need to be done in a congregate setting or can be done off-site. Typically, they make that decision for July 1, usually about June 28th. And then we have a very quick turnaround. So I'll check in with Jeannie just to see if there's any changes to that. But right now, we're still working under that congregate model for feeding kids.
So fingers crossed.
How do parents reach you?
They're welcome to email me. If they can go on our website, my email's on the curriculum site. It's in the directory. It's also on our Title I page. The document that I'm referring to tonight that the board has will be posted tomorrow morning for any public to see, and my email's on there as well.
And this will be posted
tomorrow morning,
like
6 a.m.
No. Can't you be earlier? No.
I could do it later tonight.
No, I mean, under curriculum or where?
It's under curriculum and assessment. There is a tile that is Title I.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Can you share specifically what you'll be doing with these funds to help your homeless students?
The homeless students? Yes, so we put aside, we have to put aside, but we use those funds to pay for any students who are homeless, who need a calculator, who need shoes for physical education, who need school supplies. We also can use a small amount for transportation if we need to get a child to school. So, you're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Bravo. We have a pretty exciting presentation right now. I'd like to invite Carolee Crockett up and some other staff from Jordan Small Middle School. They have a proposal for us to name the Jordan Small Middle School Gymnasium in tribute for Jack Fitch, who, it's amazing, he's taught for 39 years as a teacher in Jordan Small Middle School. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you.
my entourage behind me. So my name is Kelly Crockett. I am a teacher at Jordan Small Middle School. I have Kelly Willett, Lynn Latham, Adina Basler, Erica Green, and Jen Potter, who also staff at Jordan Small Middle School. The letter that Jen just handed out to you, I've made a couple of tweaks on, but I didn't reprint it because our entire staff signed it, and I didn't have time to go hunt them all down again. So the presentation is pretty short and simple. We would really like to respectfully request that the gymnasium at Jordan Small Middle School be dedicated to Jack Fitch. For 39 years, Jack Fitch has served the community of Raymond and its children at Jordan Small School. He started teaching in Raymond when Jordan Small was a K-6 community school, and the 7, 8, and above were all tuitioned out. Stuck with it when Raymond Elementary was built and Jordan Small Middle School transitioned into a 5-8 middle school. And if anyone knows Jack, he doesn't handle transitions well, but he has stuck with it the entire time. And of course, continuing after the consolidation of Raymond and Wyndham. Jack has been our athletic director, coach, teacher. He's been the leader of the national championship stock market team for many years running. Many of Jack's former students stay in touch with him, and you often hear them comment about the impact that he continues to have on their lives. Jordan Small often has more than 50% of our student body participating in after-school sports or other activities, due in large part to Jack's enthusiasm and dogged determination to recruit coaches and players. Now, you know we're a small school and a small staff, and it's not always easy to find people to fill in those positions, but Jack doesn't give up. For most of Jack's career, he has also been a resident of Raymond and has taught several generations of families. He is a tireless supporter of both staff at Jordan Small and the community. He is retiring this year, and we would like to commemorate this by something that will continue to be a part of Raymond now and into the future. So when the RSU 14 new middle school is complete, our understanding is that Jordan Small will go back to the town of Raymond as a town facility, and we would like to have a plaque in there that just dedicates that gym to him for all of his work and dedication. The wording, and this is would be similar to, I'm reading it now going, there's two words in there that are the same, but the dedicated to Jack Fitch for his, I'm going to change that to devotion to the schools and community of Raymond, and then the year of 2023. There's currently a plaque on the wall outside of our cafeteria that says the Raymond Community Gymnasium, and it was named in 1988, so we're not going to name the gym after him, just kind of dedicate it to him. And we would look to find a plaque that would be in a similar style to what's already there. So
while she's passing that out, would you have your entourage say their names?
Yeah, you guys.
Hi, I'm Lynn Latham. I teach 5th grade science and social studies at Jordan Small Middle School.
Perfect.
Adina Basler. I teach 7th grade ELA and social studies at Jordan Small Middle School.
Erica Green. I'm a special ed tech for 5th and 6th grade at Jordan Middle School.
I'm Jen Potter. I teach 6th grade ELA and social studies.
Kelly Willett. Kelly Willett, 8th grade science and math.
Well, it's quite a testimony to have all of you here representing such a wonderful tribute to Jack. Are there any questions from the board? Well, we have before us a motion for this proposal. Would someone like to read it?
As a former student of Jordan Small Middle School and a daughter who graduated from Jordan Small Middle School, I was very much thrilled to read the motion to approve the proposal to name the new Jordan Small Middle School Gymnasium in tribute to Jack Fitch as presented at this meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any comment from the public about this tribute? Thumbs up. I see a lot of thumbs up. 39 years. That's quite an accomplishment. Bravo to you, Jack. Any board discussion at all?
Just, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. I'm sure he's probably, well, I don't know if he knows about it yet, but I'm sure he will be thrilled that you thought so much of him to do this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
So one of Phoebe's, Phoebe had several favorite teachers at Jordan Small, and some of them are standing up here in front of me today. So thank you, ladies, for being a star in my daughter's life. She was especially enamored with Jack. I'm going to cry. There was an incident in her last year at the middle school. She had great respect for him. And it's not easy to get respect from my kid, as you all know. She'll kill me for telling the story, so please don't tell her. She had been talking in class, and he said, "Phoebe, cut it out." And she ignored him. And he kind of barked at her a little. And it startled her, and she was so ashamed to make him upset because he was such a star in her life that she actually ended up going to the guidance counselor because she was just beside herself, so upset. I get a panicked call from the guidance counselor saying, "You need to come, Phoebe's a mess, she's crying, she's hysterical." So we had a meeting with Jack after, and I felt so bad for him because he was apologizing to her and she's crying, but it's only because he is a rock star that she had that reaction. So it's well deserved.
What an amazing legacy Mr. Fitch, as I know him, has had to the Jordan Small community. I think my fondest memory is doing the stock market game with him through 5th grade and 6th grade, where he's leading a group of 5th graders and 6th graders managing stock portfolios in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, who are investing money better than all of us in this room. And he led a team to Washington, D.C., best in the country, consistently best in the state. The whole gymnasium is covered in banners for that amazing accomplishment. So this is amazing. Big thank you to Mr. Fitch.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There. Is this working? It is. Okay. Thank you all for being here. It's so heartwarming when I see staff who appreciate each other, and Jack certainly has some large shoes. It's going to be tough to fill him. I remember when he came to previous meetings and he presented with students about the stock market. I'm like, I want to be in that class. I want to learn more about that. So thank you all. I think we're ready to vote. May I have a motion, please? Oh, we did? Did we do that? Yes. We did vote?
No, we're ready to vote. We did the motion.
Right. Okay, let's vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 13, teachers, second-year probationary contract status. And before I have someone do the motion and read this very lengthy list, I wonder if Mr. Howell could just explain what that means.
Sure. So in the state, wow, it's a little loud, sorry. In the state of Maine, when a staff member is hired, there is a 2-year probationary status. That's an opportunity for the district and the individual to determine whether or not they are a good fit for one another. Just trying to figure out who I'm getting feedback from over here. And it's goes through a two-step process. So the first year, when someone's hired, the board goes on a recommendation to hire the individual. After that first year, there is then a recommendation to either continue the contract or to not renew. The individuals that are listed here are second-year probationary people, so this is their second year in the district, and they're being recommended through their administrators for another year.
Thank you. I guess this isn't working. Oh, okay, good. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation to grant second-year probationary status for the 2023-2024 school year to the teachers listed here. And I apologize if any name is mispronounced, but I do my best. April Bennett, grade 5 teacher, Jordan Small Middle School. Matthew LeGrand, music band teacher, Jordan Small Middle School. Robin Rose, special ed teacher, Jordan Small Middle School. Kate Franklin, special ed teacher, Jordan Small Middle School. Joy Goddard, grade 4 teacher, Raymond Elementary School. Lindsay Lamson, school nurse, Raymond Elementary School. Ruth Murphy, special ed teacher, Wyndham High School. Hillary Chase, math teacher, Wyndham High School. Erin Doran, life and physical science teacher, Wyndham High School. Jessica Conley, math teacher, Wyndham High School. John math teacher, Wyndham High School. Molly Bell, English teacher, Wyndham High School. Allison Gazzoloni, special ed teacher, Wyndham High School. Brian Casey, applied technology STEM teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Teresa McCabe, foreign language teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Richard Meserve, alternative ed teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Matthew Zeidel, math teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Sienna Tinsley, library media specialist, Wyndham Middle School. Mary Hyde, music teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Catherine Smith, psychologist, examiner, provider, Wyndham Primary School. Heather Murphy, grade 3 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Pamela Johnson, speech therapist, Wyndham Primary School. Killian Diggins, grade 2 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Rebecca Cuniff, grade 2 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Brittany Thoreau, grade 2 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Mary Samborin, grade 2 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Crystal Turner, grade 1, Wyndham Primary School. Savannah Wright, music teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Kristen Bolya, kindergarten teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Catherine Phelps, special ed teacher, Wyndham Primary School.
Thank you. Did I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment on the motion? Board discussion? Keep looking over there. There's no board members, but you count. All those in favor? Thank you. Item number 14, teacher continuing contract status.
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation to grant continuing contract status for the 2023-24 school year to the teachers listed here. Caitlin Spalding, teacher of the deaf, district-wide. Travis Geisert, speech therapist, district-wide. Sarah Dominicus, social worker, Jordan Small Middle School. Misty Stevens, school nurse, Jordan Small Middle School. Austin Carr, grade 8 teacher, Jordan Small Middle School. Brittany Chaplin, school nurse, Manchester Elementary School. Catherine Dennis, grade 4 teacher, Manchester Elementary School. Brianna Gagne, special ed teacher, Manchester Elementary School. Teresa Reed, phys ed teacher, Raymond Elementary School. Jessica Bartholomew, school counselor, Raymond Elementary School. Amanda Pope, physical therapist, Raymond Elementary School. Catherine Pietras, health phys ed teacher, Wyndham High School. Lauren Ruffner, life and physical science teacher, Wyndham High School. Jennifer Long, English teacher, Wyndham High School. Tamisa Emerson, school counselor, Wyndham High School. Autumn Carlson Cook, grade 8 teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Margaret Dion, special education teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Abigail Merriam, special education teacher, Wyndham Middle School. Kelsey Douglas, kindergarten teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Molly Rucker, kindergarten teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Maya Manette, kindergarten teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Skylar Cambridge, grade 2 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Kimberly Proctor, grade 1 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Felicia Delcourt, grade 1 teacher, Wyndham Primary School. Chelsea Keebler, kindergarten teacher, Wyndham Primary School.
Second. Thank you. Any public comment? Board discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Can't get to the page. Here we go. May I have a motion for renewal of administrators' contracts?
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation to grant extended contract status for 2023 to 2025 for the following administrators: Elizabeth Peavy, Principal, Raymond Elementary School; Kyle Rhodes, Principal, Wyndham Primary School; Danielle Danini, Principal, Manchester Elementary School; Peter Hill, Assistant Principal, Wyndham Middle School; Ryan Karen, Principal, Wyndham High School; Crystal Vargo Ward, Assistant Principal, Manchester Elementary School; Phil Rossetti, Assistant Principal, Wyndham High School; Vanessa Michow, Assistant Principal, Wyndham High School; Diana Jordan, Assistant Principal, Wyndham Primary School; Craig Hames, Head of School Assistant Principal of Katahdin Program.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Board discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Item 16, renewal of administrator contract.
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation to grant extended contract status for 2023-2024 to the following administrator: Michelle Brand, Principal, Jordan Small Middle School.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Item number 17. May I have a motion?
I move. I move to post the warrant and notice of election for the Regional School Unit Budget Validation Referendum presented to the meeting be and is hereby approved, and that the Regional School Unit Budget Validation Referendum be and is hereby called for June 13th, 2023, for the purpose of approving the budget adopted at the Regional School Unit Budget Meeting for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
Turn it on. Any public comment? Board discussion? Sure.
In this motion, shouldn't it say 2023-2024 fiscal year?
It should.
That is correct. It should be amended.
Okay.
I make, excuse me, I make a motion to amend the RSU warrant and notice of election to change 2022-2023 to 2023 to 2024.
Second.
Right. So
I apologize. I'm sorry, everybody. Now we need to vote on the amendment to the motion. All those in favor? Sorry, Kate.
You're the parliamentarian.
Okay. All right, and back to the original motion as amended. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jay.
All those in favor? Thank you. Good catch. Item number 2. Are we good? Item number 19. May I have a motion, please?
Okay. I vote that the warrant for the Regional School Unit Regional School Unit 14 budget meeting presented to the meeting be and is hereby approved, and that the Regional School Unit budget meeting be and is hereby called for May 17th, 2023 23 for the purpose of voting on the annual budget for the regional school unit for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. And that the notice of amounts adopted at budget meeting presented to this meeting be and is hereby approved, and that the superintendent of schools of the regional school unit 14 is hereby authorized and directed to complete said notice by adding the amounts approved by the voters for each expenditure category in the total school budget summary expenditure amount, all in accordance with the regional school unit budget meeting on May 17th, 2023, and to cause copies of said notice as completed to be delivered to the municipal clerks of each municipality of the regional school unit for posting at the polling places for the June 13th, 2023 regional school unit budget validation referendum.
Second.
I have never seen so many commas.
Any public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Report of the secretary.
I move to approve the minutes of the April 12th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Public comment, board discussion. All those in favor?
I'm abstaining. Okay.
Got it. And number 2.
I move to approve the minutes of the April 26th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Public comment, board discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, we're going to move into item 21. And before we do, I just want to remind everyone about voting. This evening, we have 4 board members here. So before we begin on item 21 on the agenda, I want to remind you about the voting system. A simple majority does not necessarily carry a vote. Wyndham board members have different voting powers than Raymond board members based on population. MRS Title 20A, Section 1472 states that there shall be 1,000 votes in total among all members of the board. Each Wyndham board member vote has a value of 130. Each Raymond vote has a value of 73. The total number of votes to carry a motion must be over 500. Just to make you aware. Before we go into public comment, let's do, well, I was going to speak before we get to the motion, but that's all right. Again, I know that this is a highly charged, one of the highest charged motions in my career on the board. And I know that is extremely important to this entire community. We've spent a lot of time on this. It seems like a long time, but we followed our process of IJJ, which, as I've discussed before, we're looking at closely, been looking at for months to make changes. You don't know what you don't know until you really have to do something, and we've learned a lot during this process. So I guess what I want to say is let's be kind to one another during this vote. We're all community members here. We all live in Wyndham and Raymond, and I hope we can proceed with decorum. May I have a motion, please?
I move to accept the recommendation of the Book Challenge Committee for the book Genderqueer, located in the Wyndham High School Library.
Second.
Any public comment?
Hi, Kristen Day. I'm to the point now where I'm just not going to keep repeating how genderqueer doesn't meet age-appropriate requirements and so many other red flags. I'm truly sorry that some students feel the need for this book, that they need this book or any book to survive. but you don't expose the majority of students to adult material because a small group of people feel they need it. I know the agenda is strong, but our district can say that no, kids don't need the sexual presentation at school. That's when an opt-in might be more appropriate, if anything. It's not just this book, it's the source of materials, where they're coming from. It's whether they're accessed through clubs or teachers' personal collections. It's whether we'll look at portions of a material that can affect students and not lie that only the whole book matters. It's whether we will be responsible to organize libraries to recognize varying maturity levels. It's whether we recognize kids can look at books when they hang out in the hub of the school, the library, without checking them out. It's whether we see that the more depraved and sexual the content in school, the worse the student body is getting for all students. The writing is on the wall, and this direction is not sustainable. This book is just a symptom, and this is just the beginning. Word is that schools in Maine are going to full social-emotional learning, not social-emotional learning based, which is what we have, and removing the words academics and curriculum from policy. SEL-based has already blurred the lines for the worst. If this is coming into policy, I am asking you right now, publicly, to do so open to the public and don't sneak it in. Any more degradation to our schools is not sustainable. You have a chance to divert the flood with this vote, but I'm not holding my breath.
Anybody else? I don't see, here we go.
My name is Doris Meehan. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I just have 5 points that I'd like to make. Number one, Genderqueer is just one challenged book out of 7 that have been challenged. 5 of the other 6 left do not have anything to do with the LGBTQ community. So I think we should put aside that anybody is singling this community out and trying to take something away from them. All the other books are about pornography, and that's what this one is about. Pornography causes serious harm to all students, whether they're heterosexual, homosexual, gender, trans, whatever feelings they're having about their sexuality. Pornography harms them at a young age. Several professionals have testified to this harm. Number 4, at least 3 more adults besides those professionals have courageously and generously shared their experiences of having been exposed to pornography at a young age and the tremendous harm that has done to them. They've shared it in front of this board, in front of our whole community, and 2 of those 3 people are members of the LGBT community, and yet they dared to come forward and share that. And lastly, there are many books that are not verbally or graphically pornographic that will support the LGBTQ kids. So I would like to ask that we invest in those kind of books and get rid of the pornography.
Thank you.
Evening, Louis Solette, Wyndham, parent of first grader, and the only public comment I was going to talk about tonight was precedent and how our legal system is built upon the precedent and decisions made by those before us. And the concern that comes to mind, one way or the other, is similar to the challenges against the board personnel that we've seen over the past month, that one led to multiple more. So take that into consideration as you will, of when a victory or apparent victory is given to one voice, that emboldens their cause. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Zach Eklund, Wyndham. So Kate, you confirmed Stephen's email today regarding the link kink.com that is in the book, correct?
I did.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask the board, did each of you click on that link since you guys were all copied? Is it appropriate? Okay. So I wanted to get genderqueer and read through the book prior to this vote to understand what we're discussing. I came across page 157. 157 talks about a website, kink.com. Okay? Kink.com says this: adults only, must be 18 years and older. Should I click on it?
Yes.
Should I click on it?
Yeah. Yes. Remove the student first.
Should I?
Click it.
Laura, are you waiting now? No. Should I?
Yes.
Right? The reality is this. This is pornography, right? The school committee or the book committee last week said specifically, Kate, this book was not meant to arouse anyone. Did you click on this link? You did not. Because you would not be here right here in agreement to say, okay, this is going to move forward. Right? This says 18 years and older. Did anyone else try to get any pages that was in genderqueer printed off at FedEx, UPS, or Staples?
Can't. They won't let you.
They won't let you. Right? This is not about LGBTQIA or targeting them or this. This is about putting school appropriate material. 14-year-old, right? Let's do a little role play here. Sorry, this is getting feedback. 14-year-old, we're gonna do some role play, right? No pun intended on this one. Goes to the library, finds out about genderqueer, never heard this book before until the controversy. Starts coming across, reads it, Chris, comes across page 157, pulls out his phone that's not connected to school library, right? I have full service here, types in kink.com, is looking at pornography. Would he be suspended, Chris, for pulling up pornography on his phone? He would. You guys won't, no, I'm not stopping, Kate, until I get feedback. Okay.
It's not interactive. I've stated
But you were interactive earlier. You make it interactive when you want to make it interactive.
Your time is running. The clock is ticking.
So would you, Chris, would someone be suspended if they clicked on this link in school? You guys, the reality is this. Jessica, you got young kids, right? Do you want your daughters to click on this link at 14 years old? Because the reality is this, bullying is real, right? Whether it's this side, that side, in the middle, bullying is real. What are you gonna do when this 14-year-old boy approaches your daughter and clicks on it? Are you gonna sleep well at night knowing how you voted? I truly hope you guys are challenged to vote on this.
Your time is concluded. Thank you.
Hi, Colin Damon, parent of 2 kids in the Wyndham Primary School. Third coming next year, pretty exciting. Just wanted to thank the board for going about this review through the official channel and not acting in an emotionally charged, reactionary manner. I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want you guys to just set aside all your political thoughts on everything, and you guys were talking about bullying. Stop normalizing this stuff, okay? So if we removed this stuff, I feel like it would get better and the things would improve instead of sitting here and making it like a normal topic, because it's not a normal topic. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Just like to say that these books are not normalizing bullying.
if anything would be normalizing bullying, it would be cell phones and the increase in cyberbullying throughout schools. Most kids don't even read, and the kids reading these books are usually the victims of bullying, not the bullies. The bullies are online. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ken Clark Wyndham, and I know it's kind of a last minute thing that I came up with tonight, but let's really consider eliminating the library altogether. The information is available to anyone and everybody. I think that there's possible lawsuits that are going to come forth directed to librarians and RSU 14 itself for distributing porn to minors. But it hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen. And if someone clicks on that link, like he just said, there's going to be lawsuits flying. Get the books out of the school. And again, we have great empathy for people going through tough times. We have talked to more specialists and done more research than I feel anyone on this board, maybe less a select few, have done. We brought more professional opinions and did a, honestly, I feel a much better job of researching this than the committee itself, which again was incredibly biased. Think with common sense. The more of this stuff we put in front of kids, the more they're going to go down this road. What you feed them, they recycle. You put inspirational books, math, and science in front of kids, they're going to excel in that. You put porn in front of kids. I'm not going to go into how vulgar it is that these kids are exposed to. That's what they're going to eat. That's what they're going to digest, and that's what they're going to come out to. Get these books out of the reach of them and stop putting them in front of my child when she walks in the library. This crap about you guys being forthcoming is a bunch of bull. You have posters up that say, go talk to a counselor and your parent doesn't have to know. So don't say that you're transparent. Don't say we knew about these books coming into the library. I'm gonna try and keep my cool, but my gosh, folks, this shouldn't even be talked about. Let's just get rid of the library, honestly. It's an equal playing field for everybody. People get information on a computer, do a little media center. We'll save hundreds of thousands on infrastructure. Get rid of some salaries, put them to our teachers who are underpaid, don't need the librarians. They're the ones pushing the porn. They might be the ones coming out with lawsuits against them. Because there's so many people in this world. The majority of these people, I feel, do not want the books in there. And I think as you guys have to represent the majority of the public and set aside your personal feelings for this. Thank you.
I just want to remind everyone that in Augusta tomorrow at 1 o'clock, you can testify on LD 123, which will remove all the clause to have an explicit material in the school system, and it will be removed if it's passed. So LD 123, 1 o'clock tomorrow in Augusta.
Courtney Post-Vanderburg, Wyndham. As an educator, I've been getting up here for weeks dropping good news, because we all needed some good news. But I'd like to speak on something a little differently. Before genderqueer was even written, I was targeted by a male student with very sexual, explicit material and pictures of themselves. And I went through months of having to relive that, having to talk about it with people, having to sit with groups of people and talk about it. It's not in the books. It was happening before the books. That's it.
Anyone else?
Danny Davis, Wyndham. That was so uncomfortable with that link. Like, nobody wanted him to see it, and he visibly didn't want to see it. And it's not okay to sneak it into the library for him to check it out on his own. He's not of age for it. That was so uncomfortable. Like, if he wants to go to that on his own, that's fine. But for him to, like, be directed to it in the library is ridiculous. And if this book stays, everyone needs to open their eyes. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Things are happening, and how can you say they're not? Those words up there, leadership, responsibility, perseverance, conquer, tenacity, knowledge, I believe, motivation, and leadership. Where have those gone? Janet Mills entered, and those are disappearing. You slowly take those down, and imagine what they're going to be replaced with. They're already being replaced with some awful, awful stuff. Think about it.
Good evening, Alyssa Messer, Raymond. Thank you, board, for opening the floor to the public, for sitting and listening, for taking comments and hearing. It seems very unfair at times to be targeted and to not be able to respond back. As a board member, to have a lot of knowledge of knowing what's happening behind the seat, working on late night committees, working through things, and not having the public know what all you do. I see that, I hear that from you, and I thank you for your service to our community. The last speaker just talked about what's happening in Augusta, the changes of Janet Mills and these perseverance, conquered tenacity. I couldn't agree more. These things are falling by the wayside. As a matter of fact, I just read an article today on mainfirstproject.org. Maine Education Chief of Academic Learning takes backseat to social, emotional, gender, and race. The Maine Wire. You can look it up online. I won't read it to you, but what it talked about was the direction from Augusta, not the direction from Wyndham Raymond. So we need to, as a community, understand where our civics lessons are and how things play out and how things change. And I appreciate those directions. As a board, part of your responsibility is to give guidance. So I appreciate that and those comments, and I hope that that keeps coming. Because to target people and individuals on the board as leadership or leadership as the organization is unfair and unfounded. As the community member on the board committee that reviewed this book, I will tell you that we spent countless hours on our own researching it, starting with Supreme Court cases to give definitions, to file up all the way through to make sure, in fact, that it was legally based, that it was policy-based, that it was statute-based, that it was state-based, without our own bias, without our own opinions. I would charge you as a school board to do the same tonight. You have a policy, you have statutes, you need to follow them. You've already heard in this very room, this very hours, threats against you for legality. So I would suggest that you follow the policy that is stated as of right now, as broken as it may be, and as recognized as you have called it. Follow your policy, use those standards, make sure you're following them, and if we need change, which I think most of us agree we do need change, let's make sure we're putting it in the right pockets and putting our energies in the right places and align ourselves together, not dividing ourselves, to make sure that we're putting those energies in the right places. Going to Augusta, as a previous speaker just said, it's a great idea. Let's go make those changes in the right places and put our energies in the right places, because our kids do deserve that. Our kids deserve the best from us, not the worst from us. And I thank you that you're fighting for that and providing that. Thank you.
Any other comments?
So talking about following the law, is it legal for somebody under 18 to go to a pornographic website? Is it legal? We'll find out. It's not legal. I mean, you guys are all smart, intelligent people, I'm sure with loving families. You're not going to sit there and promote a pornographic website to kids in your family. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it in your youth groups, that's for sure. So I want to talk about legal. The book committee blew it. That is huge. So it's up to you guys. This is historic. Hey, what does Wyndham want to stand? What does Wyndham and Raymond want to stand for? Protect the children, please. Thank you.
Any further? Here we go.
Okay.
Yes, Justin from Wyndham, Justin Wynot from Wyndham. You guys have a hard decision tonight. No matter what decision you make, it's going to divide the community. But the problem is, the decision to put this book in the library is what divided the community. There's no easy way to go about this to put peace on both sides, but you have to forget about the people here and think about the students that are in this school, the students that you are here to protect, the students that you volunteer your time, countless hours, to look over and guide into the future. What future do you want them to have?
Thank you.
My name is Kate Turpin.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Seriously.
would you please address the audience?
No, not address the audience.
Sorry, the board.
My pronouns are they, them. If you want to heckle me, just do it right.
Just please.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm here. My name is Kate Turpin. I am a resident of Wyndham. I'm a scholarship sponsor. The scholarship that I sponsor focuses on resilience and well-being. I love this book. I love it because before I read it, I felt very alone. I didn't know how to identify myself. After I read this book, I was afraid that my partner of 3 years would leave me because of my pronouns. There are many students who have never read a book like this, and when they have access to it, it gives them opportunities to have conversations with the people that they love about who they are. The LGBTQIA Two-Spirit Plus community lacks leadership largely from all of the adults who were killed in the AIDS epidemic. For all of the hate crimes that have happened, we don't have leaders. And that's why it's really important to listen to the students, because they will become the leaders of this community and of our entire community. I hope that I can say that I live in a district that keeps this book and keeps inclusion and values it. Because if you take it out, it's showing the adults, it's showing the students that none of those things matter. So I hope you make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Landon Severino. I'm from Sebago, but I have a beautiful son that goes to Wyndham Primary. I've been coming to these meetings frequently. I never plan to speak. I just happen to come up. I just want to say that this book will still be available. Nobody wants to ban it and have nobody read it ever again. Simply, we just don't want it in the school setting. As many people have come up here and said, there is a literal link called kink.com that literally brings you to porn. So I can't even fathom, and I said this the very first time I spoke, that we have to fight to keep books that have links to literal porn in the school. You can still get this book. You can discuss this. You can be yourself and be open, and you are loved. You are a human being. But appropriate matter or appropriate material in school is not yet when there is a literal link to porn. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Candace Spaulding from Raymond. To the sweet girl that got up, and I know that's hard for her, and I don't want anyone to feel bad about who they are. And if anybody here is making anyone feel bad about who they are, they're wrong. I believe in this board. I know I've heard a lot of people tell me that you've already made up your minds and you're not going to take the book out of the school, but I believe you're going to do the right thing. And the person that was up here earlier who said they don't have anybody, I'm sorry, I should have said they don't have anybody to relate to. I don't understand, and maybe they can explain it to me afterwards, what that has to do with the filth that's in the book and the pornography. That person is better than that. That person doesn't need to identify with pornography because that person has other good qualities. And I just hope that you'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer White. I just wanted to point out quickly, again, just reiterating what I had pointed out last time. You know, trying to figure out what is pornographic and what isn't, and the argument that I'm hearing a lot is, well, it doesn't bring arousal or whatever to the students that are reading this, but I would beg to defer on that because I've worked with high school students, and I would think that it does to some of them, especially if they go to kink.com. And so the CDC, just a reminder, relied on heavily through the pandemic. And they have written materials on their website that address child sexual abuse, which includes showing pornographic materials to individuals under the age of 18. It falls into the category of child sexual abuse. That's right on the CDC and written in their materials. So I would urge you tonight, keep that in mind when you're making your decision. I know it's an important one, but I do think, you know, we're not trying to divide the community, we're trying to make good decisions for our children. And I don't think you really want to put a pornographic website in the hands of our children.
Anyone else?
Ewan O'Shea, hi again. So I would like to clarify that the school most definitely has this kink.com website blocked. So if I go there and see something I don't want to see, it's entirely my fault, because I would have to make the decision to stop using the school's Wi-Fi connection to bypass the block set up by it. I know this because I go to the high school, and I, along with many other people, would have done this already if I so desired. Additionally, most of us barely go to the library anyway, if not at all. We only use the library if it is required by our English teachers or if we want to skip classes. I choose to interact with this book. It is my responsibility to control how I respond to its content.
Anyone else?
I would just like Jean Fisk, Wyndham, I would just like for you, when you vote, vote for the greater good, what's benevolent, and let your conscience be your guide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy Brum, Wyndham, Maine. Did they not block the website because it is illegal? It's inappropriate.
Anyone else? I see no movement, so I'm closing public comment. Going on to board comment. I would love for you to go first. Mine works.
I'll just move. I usually don't write stuff out, but I had a lot I wanted to say. I've been holding my peace, so I wrote something out here. All right. In the hours of public comment we have all witnessed, first sparked by debate on this book, a multitude of other various topics have risen. What simply started as a legitimate concern towards mature material access has now inflated into a debate spanning topics such as gender, equity, test scores, curriculum, student experience, school atmosphere, and many more. I wish I could take the time to address all of these different areas of discussion because in some cases, the assumptions of what truly occur in my school are incorrect or are more nuanced than what was presented at these meetings. However, I think it's best to focus my time on genderqueer tonight. I read genderqueer a few nights ago and spent the hours before tonight's meeting not only thinking about what I read, but considering the opinions from the students who have spoken, thank you to those who have been speaking by the way, and also analyzing the appeal and committee report. I'm going to keep this as brief as possible, hitting the main points I think the board and community should hear while also clarifying some aspects of my community. Number one, books have specific themes, messages, and contents. In middle and high school, we learn to analyze books based on these themes and messages. We read a vast catalog of material in order to understand not only a vast collection of themes, but how authors can demonstrate similar themes with different stories.
This is why we read Romeo and Juliet for themes of passion, love, and fate, and read Hamlet for themes of action versus inaction and political corruption. Yet, through both of these stories, both of these texts comment on death and revenge. So what am I trying to say? Well, in the appeal we read that genderqueer, focused on a gender identity and social journey, cannot promote inclusion, support, a thriving character, or success. That the fact that this text primarily focuses on these topics excludes it from being capable of, in general, equitable life lessons. This argument is not true of genderqueer, nor any other text in our library. Most books are not holistic. They don't provide every possible perspective or every experience. Books are written to focus on a particular viewpoint and add to the overall inclusivity and diversity of the Windham High School Library. Is genderqueer inclusive of all viewpoints? Not necessarily, but that's why it's vital we maintain our library collection to ensure a catalog that offers diverse viewpoints. Keeping genderqueer means keeping books with similar themes and opposing viewpoints. Number 2, genderqueer is a mature book, but it is suitable for all high school-age children. The argument that genderqueer is pornographic is completely false. I find it incredibly improbable that any school-age child in high school would find the book enticing, including students below high school or with reading disabilities, as mentioned in the appeal. The images and concepts in this graphic novel are just not pornographic. However, genderqueer does include material that for younger students may bring up questions, but not the majority of high school age students reading this will have questions. The concepts of sex, pornography, drug abuse, masturbation, and menstruation are not foreign to any high school age peers. And although many students and community members argue that this was because the collective innocence of children is gone by the time we enter middle school, this is not true for many kids. And it's definitely not the primary reason for students' understanding of these topics. In the hours of public comment, I couldn't recall an instance where we discussed health class. In the health curriculum, students learned to understand reproductive anatomy, sexual intercourse, STDs and how to prevent them, and also the social and emotional aspects of sex. This was all discussed in a safe educational environment, not simply through student culture. But, of course, kids talk, and there is a certain collection of student knowledge on this subject. So why is this important? Well, this shows that high schools reading genderqueer will not be educated, enticed, or influenced by the sexual material in the text. It doesn't set a new porn culture or normality towards sex. None of these topics are new to us. It does set a normality for those experiencing a gender identity journey. As a school board, I hope that you do not set a precedent for what young adult literature means. Young adult literature will bring up complex subjects like sex, gender, and drug abuse, but that does not mean it's meant solely for adults. Children need to learn about the world before diving right in. Number 3, IJJ needs specification. Here's what I think needs to be changed. 1, there needs to be specification between curriculum and non-curricular reading. As you've mentioned, you already worked on that. That sounds awesome. Number 2, instead of writing, quote, provide a balanced representation of the contributions of diverse groups, it should say contributes to a balanced representation, ... Number 3, foster material accessibility. I think that IJJ should foster material accessibility. Students in middle school with parent permission should be able to read genderqueer, and students who wish to access material outside of the Windham High School catalog should be able to work with librarians to receive books from other sources, such as the public library. This increases access and should be written into the policy. In closing, removing genderqueer is silencing a specific voice, perspective, and story from our library, Maya Kobabe's voice. And although the appeal committee argued that adult viewpoints and experiences do not need to be the different viewpoints included in our library collection, I would argue they can sometimes be the most important perspectives. In my time at Windham High School, I have read a plethora of books from the complex perspective of adults. I read The Things They Carried, 1,000 Splendid Suns, and The Handmaid's Tale, all books that significantly impacted me in different ways. I hope that you will let other students dive into the story of genderqueer and take witness to the valuable stories, themes, and messages at hand.
Who's next?
That's a good one. Given all the weeks of testimony we've received, it's hard to have an original thought. Sometimes I feel like all the arguments that existed have already been made. So I'm going to start by detailing my experience with the book Genderqueer. When it was presented to the board in January of this year, select pages were held up and shown to the board, and the speaker referenced passages about tasting vagina slime and oral sex. At the time, I was admittedly a bit surprised that this was something available to our students. So I ordered the book, and when it arrived, the first thing I did was flip through to try to find the pages that I saw in the meeting. Considering it's a graphic novel, that shouldn't be hard to do. But I couldn't find them. It wasn't until I read the whole thing that I came across the referenced scenes. Turns out I had stopped on those pages when I first got the book. The reason I couldn't identify them as the same as what was presented to me prior was the context. Someone flashed a picture, called it porn, spoke loudly with anger and profanity-laced threats to file charges against staff members, so it created a mindset for me that this was a concern. Therefore, I expected to be concerned when I came across those pages again. In the absence of that, with the mindset of curiosity, these scenes came across to me as harmless. Once I read them in context, they were clearly included because they were necessary to tell the story. Maya speaks to her sister about her genitalia because her parents, while supportive, were not forthcoming with information. Maya had few people Eve felt comfortable enough to talk with about sex because her life experience was often very different from that of her peers. The single-sex act pictured in this book between consenting adults was a realization of a fantasy that Maya had for much of her life. This was a pivotal moment for the author in understanding herself as a non-sexual person. Maya is uncomfortable in the scene and asks her partner to stop, and she does. I find this section of the book particularly beneficial as it provides an example of setting boundaries beforehand and language of withdrawing consent during sex. There's nothing in genderqueer that concerns me, but that's not the question being asked of us tonight. My comfort level with genderqueer is as irrelevant to the question as your discomfort by it. The question is this book appropriate for high school students in RSU 14? The challenge committee says yes. 3 people in our community that have formally challenged it say no. One challenger expressed understandable frustration that the challenge committee didn't directly address her concerns about the material, so I'd like to take this opportunity to address some of them now. The appeal quotes the author as saying the book was written for late teens to mid-20s, therefore aimed at a more mature audience. However, in a piece Maya wrote for the Washington Post dated October 29, 2021, E said it was written for high school and above. Because we have conflicting statements from the author, this argument is inconclusive. Appeal cites booklooks.com as a source of reasonable reviews, in opposition to the reviews cited by the challenge committee. I agree with the premise of booklooks. Not every parent has time to read each book cover to cover before their child does, but their rating system is extremely problematic. The rating level 1, which means some content may not be appropriate for very young children, would be given to any book with inexplicit sexuality. Booklooks apparently forgot that heterosexuality is a sexuality because it doesn't classify straight characters as concerning, just the gay ones. The challenge and appeal cite the depiction of Maya's use of prescription drugs as posing physical risk to kids, not abuse of prescription drugs, but use. When a medication is prescribed by a doctor to a patient and taken for their intended use, that's called healthcare. Challenge and appeal documents stigmatize this use of healthcare and then later say that the gynecological exam scene deters females from receiving healthcare. So is accessing healthcare problematic or not? Appeal states that Maya does some unethical things like masturbating while driving, and this provides an unethical model. The idea that anything occurring in a story is a promotion of this act doesn't hold up well to scrutiny. No one would say that Romeo and Juliet promotes suicide or To Kill a Mockingbird promotes racism. Appeal states no student's value is woven into any library material. Agreed. Of course, sexual minority students have just as much value as any other student, but they don't feel valued when they see their cisgendered, heterosexual peers represented in library materials, but not them. Or worse, see their stories challenged and called obscene, part of an agenda, and removed from library shelves all across our nation. Many have said this book is available in the public library and students can get it there. I find this an interesting argument because the public library has no age restriction or maturity level limits on materials checked out the way RSU 14 does. For example, a Wyndham Middle School student couldn't walk into our high school library and check out genderqueer, but they could walk to the public library and do so. We have age access restrictions simply by way of separate libraries and separate school buildings.
At the Wyndham Public Library, there are 3 sections: children, teen, and adult. According to their policy, anyone older than 8 can be unaccompanied and check out any material from any section. If the goal is to limit access of adult material to minors, the promotion of the public library as an alternative to ours doesn't accomplish it because they have even less restriction to access than we do. Appeal states that we must cater to the lowest maturity level in the building. Material selection criteria says we need to cater to varied maturity levels. I think this is really what it comes down to for me, is the interpretation of this section. I will acknowledge that students grow up a lot from beginning of freshman year to the end of senior year. Some students come from environments where nothing in this book would surprise them, and others would find it eye-opening. I went back to my IJJ research notes from a few weeks ago, and I pulled up the policy from RSU 16. Their policy, including their materials selection section, was again nearly identical to ours, including materials should take into consideration the varied maturity levels of students served. The reason I picked RSU 16 is because they have a K-8 school. That school has 1 library. I would hope that we could all agree that if this library only had books appropriate for kindergarten students, it would be a disservice to the rest of their student population. This demonstrates that the policy intention is that we can and should have available some more mature books for our more mature students. For this reason, even though genderqueer may not cater to students with the lowest maturity level in our high school, it should remain on the shelves for the rest.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay. According to IJJ Instructional and Library Material Selection, books are selected based on multiple considerations. The book must provide enrichment opportunities that expand interest and lifelong learning, provide a wide range of materials with diverse appeal representing various points of view, foster respect and appreciation for cultural diversity, varied opinions, and enhance a student's capacity for critical analysis to allow students to make informed decisions in their daily lives. These literary works allow our students to see themselves and their peers reflected and to grow and learn in a safe and inclusive environment. This describes one of RSU 14's mission and core values: to enable all members of the school community to develop their unique potential and acceptance, creating a safe learning environment that honors and celebrates individual differences, strengths, challenges, and ideas with honest dialogue and good intentions. This correlates with the CDC research and multiple other educational sources that students who feel safe and connected to their school are more successful in meeting academic and life goals. The sole interaction with just the students around them, especially ones that don't understand them, can be more detrimental than helpful. As stated in multiple public comments, LGBTQIA+ students don't have equal rights compared to their peers, and this population is at increased risk for bullying due to the stigma that trans people shouldn't exist. It is not being said that a student's value or existence is woven into a book, but when they can see someone having a similar experience, they don't feel so alone and isolated. This particular account shows the challenges that the author faces, but without the depiction of horrific bigotry or hatred, showing that the reader's life doesn't have to include pain and rejection. Students with a similar experience will feel affirmed, and others can gain understanding and empathy. Although the intent of the challenge or appeal may not find, quote, the idea itself as offensive or disagreeable, quote, the message coming from multiple comments and emails do state otherwise due to the individual's beliefs. Not all high school students are emotionally mature to read this book, but there are just as many students that would benefit from Kababe's narrative. If all material were only for the youngest students that have access to it, that would not benefit the older children in the same establishment. I understand and respect a parent's right to have a say in what materials their children have access to at school. Many books contained in our libraries, especially passages or portions pulled out of context, have the potential to make many of us feel uncomfortable and challenge our thoughts and beliefs. Being able to seek out knowledge and learn how to process information and perspectives other than our own is an important skill. Let us foster an environment of learning, compassion, understanding, and critical thinking. I can confidently say that genderqueer is not used in our curriculum, nor available in the classroom. The availability is limited to the high school library, allowing the student the choice to access this book on their own accord, and if deemed inappropriate by parents, have the right to request their student not take out the book. It is also the parents' responsibility to have conversations with their children so they are prepared for the multitude of topics coming up in this changing world. To address hypersexualization, which has been stated as an agenda or ideology being pushed in our school system, I looked up data coming from the National Center for Health Statistics on teens who were sexually active over the last 30-ish years. Fewer than 40% of American high schoolers have ever had sexual intercourse, a decline of over 15% since the early 90s. The National Center for Health Statistics attributes this to high-quality sex education, encouraging parents to talk with their children about sex, and ensuring access to health care services. This book represents that having open and honest conversations with a partner is important and does not have to be awkward. The intent of IJJ is to consider a range of perspectives on the matter. In this process, I searched multiple reviews, both professional and personal, from very positive to negative, to gain perspective of what everyone's thoughts were across the board. Along with reading the book, listening to public comment, emails, the original complaint, the review committee's decision, and the appeal, in making a decision if the book should remain in the library. The reviews from students of the high school population and families of students who can identify with the material themselves were some of the most impactful and influential. Ethics is defined as being in accordance with the accepted principles of right and wrong. This book, as a whole, is not unethical. Who is to judge someone's experiences or who someone is as right or wrong? It is not influential, an instruction manual, pornography, or a persuasive essay to be non-binary. This book is one person's account, the definition of a memoir, sharing one person's experiences that you may or may not be able to relate to or empathize with, allowing you to better understand fellow human beings in today's society. Our students learn more from their peers walking in the halls of the school about personal experiences than the contents of a library book. This memoir is a part of our American and global heritage. Just like civil rights, women's rights, racial rights are a part of our history, so are rights of the LGBTQ community. Let's not let history repeat itself. This material is available at the public library. Yes, our public library is in close proximity to our schools. This does not mean it is accessible to a high school student who does not have free periods and is completely dependent on school transportation. Having this resource in the school library allows accessibility for any student who wants or needs this particular book. There was mention in the appeal, specifically criteria H, which states provide information that will enable students to make informed decisions in their daily lives. That this controversial material for high school students only shows one view of these changing times: social issues and ideology. After looking at the high school library, I did find that there is at least one book that does show an alternative point of view. When Harry Became Sally, Responding to the Transgender Moment by Ryan T. Anderson. I actually got this out of the high school library. A book about detransitioning. Restricting access to genderqueer from the library will contribute to students' feelings of shame and isolation. Instead, we should be sending the message that there is someone out there who understands what they are going through and that our community is a safe space that promotes acceptance and inclusivity.
Who's next?
Okay, so thanks for that. I have appreciate both of you sharing the process that you went through. I think that's really interesting to hear. I also went through the committee report, read the appeal for genderqueer, each of those couple of times. Countless hours reviewing public comment, reading emails, watching videos, reading Supreme Court cases. That was fun. And really, any judgments nationally regarding this particular book. I did review the First Amendment in Libraries presented by Deborah Caldwell-Stone, the director for ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom, and at least a half a dozen court cases that relate to that topic around intellectual freedom and some of the precedent dating back to California versus Miller. I've also spent a considerable amount of time reviewing white papers around equitable access in libraries, specifically for transgender individuals. Interestingly, the University of Texas has done a really nice job, not just with their curriculum, but actually with the study of the history of transgender and a number of other things that I won't go into tonight. But it's important to note the research I think that each board member does if you're inclined to share, just because I think it's our duty to attempt to reveal our approach that we take in the process for making the decision. This is my process. Just start by going into a little bit of background information, if that's all right. In reviewing the equitable process in libraries, equitable access in libraries, specifically for transgender individuals, that kind of surfaced through my research through the University of Texas. There's a lot of research available around what is and isn't available for a number of different protected classes in the United States. I started with the work of Aubrey Drake, a social behavioral health researcher at Bi-State Health in Massachusetts. Drake identifies as gender queer, non-binary, and transgender. The pronoun is they. They graduated from Southern Connecticut State University with a BA in psychology and earned a Master of Social Work degree from the University of Connecticut and a Master of Library Science degree from Southern Connecticut State University. It's really interesting to see that people with that much credentialing have written white papers around this topic. I think that we heard from a member of the public tonight about how difficult this topic is for the 8 people that you have sitting in front of you. This really is a federal and a state issue, and I'm gonna just call on everyone here to continue to work at that level. Other white papers in this topic were an assessment of the information needs of transgender communities. Just a little note from that one paper, libraries and library professionals need to gain better understanding of transgender individuals' information needs. Research shows that transgender people have unique needs which differ from LGBTQ individuals. And in many environments, they experience substantial barriers to obtaining quality library service. Another paper that I read was the representation in the collection, assessing coverage of LGBTQ content in an academic library collection. And then another one I think is worth mentioning for those viewing or watching this back that are interested, checking the pulse of LGBTIQ+ inclusion and representation in the academic library, a literature review. And that was more from someone taking a postgraduate program in those studies. I want to acknowledge that there's a well-established amount of research that shows, quote, issues with the quality and currency. So, just really the quality of the material of LGBTIQ materials in library collections, and have identified gaps and bias in specific areas such as health, legal, and medical information. So it's well established for many years that the access and accuracy and factual information for this community isn't great in libraries. So I think that was a good place for me to start. I'll just move my comments regarding the committee report and more to the point of our discussion for this agenda item. The committee references in their report the IJJ policy, instructional and library media materials, letter item H, provide information that will enable students to make informed decisions in their daily lives. Jesse referenced this as well. And the other one, and this is selection criteria that I'm talking about, and then the other one was be current and be accurate. The report noted that Genderqueer is a memoir that was established in May 2019, so it is both accurate and current. A memoir is a narrative composed from personal experience. I found that really interesting because I can't say that I had considered something that was a memoir or someone's experience as completely factual. So just kind of tangled with that a little bit. In response to both of these criteria, so again, the criteria in the selection from our policy was the material should provide information that will enable students to make informed decisions in their daily lives, and I think that can be applied in many ways. It also should be accurate and current. And one of the things that we received as a testimonial was from a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist in our community with 34 years of practice experience. The doctor cites an illustration from the page of this book and cites the following concerns that appear to offer a conflicting opinion, at least in concept, not necessarily directly conflicting. Because the report that the committee did provide detailed ALA schools and minors' rights statement, and while I acknowledge that that statement from the committee is acceptable to meet this criteria, I also want to highlight that there's other aspects to providing information that will enable students to make informed decisions in their daily lives. So the doctor goes on to talk about the fact that let me just back up to be clear. The doctor cites an illustration on a page of the book and cites the following concerns that appear to offer a conflicting opinion to the committee report that by her testimonial, the portion of the memoir misrepresents a large majority of our student population within the high school. And to be clear, that doesn't mean the memoir doesn't represent some of our students also at the high school. It's not either or, it's both. It was just another point of contention. It's a point that I want to highlight as a legitimate rebuttal to the fact that this memoir meets selection criteria outlined for all students. I don't believe, I'm going to read what she wrote here, but it's fair to say that what is in genderqueer doesn't provide all of our students to make informed decisions in their daily lives in the context of what she's written. She quotes 2 pages in the book, 129 and 220. There's an image portrayed by the author after a speculum exam, and the doctor notes, this passage describes the most excruciating, quote, pain of my life from a speculum exam attempt. Ultimately, the author was given a prescription for a narcotic, dose provided in the text, to take prior to an exam, a repeat exam. Having provided thousands of speculum exams for girls and women, I can confidently state that the experience of the author misrepresents the typical experience and in fact would be an extremely rare occurrence. Most high school students will not yet have had a gynecological exam. And I think really that's the piece of it, right, is preparing them for their daily lives. If there's a high school student reading this material, it wouldn't necessarily prepare them for their daily lives because it may not be typical for their life. Presenting the experience in these terms can result in unnecessary stress. She goes on to talk about anxiety, pelvic exams, etc. And then she provides her opinion about some of the ways that it can jeopardize the care provider's ability to perform the exams in the future, etc. She concludes with saying, while understanding this illustration and description represents the experience of the author, and it is age inappropriate and runs counter to our shared goals of empowering our young people to take ownership of their health, medical care, and well-being. And the reason I pointed that out was because not to refute what the committee said for H, it was really just to offer another perspective to the fact that the book can meet a criteria and it can also not meet a criteria, in my opinion, in the same way. It's just a different way to look at it, so I don't think it has to be one or the other. Further, the committee report on page 2 and 3 checked the box that denotes general acceptance of materials by reading a range of reviews. So they provided a few reviews from Publishers Weekly quoted in the review committee report, but no age was given. Shelf awareness was quoted in the review committee report, but no age was given. There was an opinion. There were a number of age reviews provided. Amazon was 18 plus, Barnes & Noble 15 plus, Common Sense Media 16 plus, Books A Million 16 plus, and it's my understanding RSU 14 uses Ingram as a source for purchasing materials, and this organization, Ingram, RSU 14 uses for ordering the library materials for primarily that the target age group for genderqueer is 16 plus. Further, Common Sense Media at 16 plus describes the book as a moving memoir of gender identity. A gender identity search has explicit images. That's the short description. RSU 14 uses Common Sense Media to support our entire digital citizenship curriculum, or a large part of it. We have a website that outlines from primary school to grade 12 in the high school, and Common Sense Media rates this book as 16 plus. There's only one resource the committee quoted or that I could find, including the place where we purchased the book from, that showed an age range for this book that was age appropriate for and included all of the students in the high school that have access to this material in our library. School Library Journal quoted that it was grade 9 plus. I also added Books A Million on there, so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Common Sense Media, Books A Million, and Ingram, where we purchased the book, are recommending an age that isn't represented in our school, meaning that we have many students that have access to this material and we can't restrict it. This material was purchased from Ingram, is shelved in the library with the recommendation for 16 plus. We have no restrictions in place for younger students to restrict access. We know we're unable to restrict this material due to rights to access within the library for students who fit the age rating of this book. I just want to take another minute to, a few minutes if I could. I don't want to skip over this. There's just, I know I got a lot to say, I'm sorry. Board of Education versus PICO regarding the removal of books. I fully acknowledge that there's First Amendment rights of students. Nothing that I'm going to say tonight is going to refute that. There's a few quotes that I think are important to share. Basically, the first quote's going to talk about part of the case for this that talks about schools and school boards don't have the ability to remove materials based on their politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion. This is not my opinion. I just want to read this. I think it's good for the record. Our Constitution does not permit the official suppression of ideas, and a few of our board members have shared this tonight. I agree. Thus, whether petitioners' removal of books from their school libraries denied respondents their First Amendment rights depends upon the motivation behind the petitioner's actions. If petitioners intended by the removal decision to deny respondents access to ideas with which petitioners disagreed, and if this intent was the decisive factor in the petitioner's decision, the petitioners would have exercised their discretion in violation of the Constitution. In brief, we hold that local school boards may not remove books from school board library shelves simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books and seek their removal to prescribe, quote, what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, and other matters of opinion. I also think that it's important just to say part of that case is a school library is an environment especially appropriate for the recognition of the First Amendment rights of students. So I think having said that, I want to move into another section. The next thing that I just wanted to note was referencing the Windham High School Student Handbook. I thank Al for his comments tonight. I'm just going to read a short passage that captures prohibited conduct from our Weapons, Violence, and School Safety Policy, JICIA. In an effort to ensure a safe environment for students and employees, all persons are prohibited from the following conduct at all times: while on school property, while in attendance at school, during a school-sponsored activity, or at any time or place that such conduct directly interferes with the operations, discipline, and welfare of the school. Number H in that policy says that at no time would it be tolerated for the student to exhibit lewd, indecent, or obscene acts or expressions of any kind. Administrators shall take appropriate actions against individuals violating any portion of the above policy, including but not limited to the student discipline or action by law enforcement officials. And it goes on to talk about those violating the policy may be expelled, etc. For the purpose of this meeting tonight, and referencing what we're expecting our high school students to understand is the definition of lewd, indecent, or obscene acts, I looked up the general definitions. We've spent so much time talking about precedent cases in Supreme Court. Our students do not know certainly what a three-pronged test for obscenity is, right? So when we put in our handbook that it's not expected they act in a lewd, indecent, or obscene manner, they're not looking at the Supreme Court precedent definition of obscenity. In our handbook, lewd is noted. So what does lewd mean? Obscene, vulgar, sexually unchaste, or what is this word? Licentious? I'm sorry, I should have looked that up. Indecent, grossly improper, or offensive, unseemly, or inappropriate, and obscene is disgusting to the senses, abhorrent to morality or virtue, containing or being language regarded as taboo in polite usage, repulsive by reason of crass disregard of moral and ethical principles, so excessive as to be offensive. I think it's fair to say that these definitions from a student's perspective seem clear for a student in grades 9 to 12. They would generally understand the definition and how they would apply to what's expected when we give them the handbook. The content in this book on several occasions uses profanity and commentary between individuals, offers images that if portrayed in drawings, clothing, or expressed in some other means, including literally expressing themselves by repeating the sentiments inside of this book from one character to another from this material out loud, would render them in violation of the student handbook in multiple occasions and in violation of our policy JICIA. One of our board members talked tonight about profanity. The language quote from Common Sense Media, it actually blanks them out: shit, holy shit, fuck, dick, and cock, and the middle finger gesture. That's what Common Sense Media has flagged for the profanities for this book. And we rely on Common Sense Media in this district. So that's challenging for me, and as I went through this process, looking at what we're asking the students to do, we wouldn't expect for them to be speaking like this in any way, shape, or form. Okay. My page is all organized here. I'm on the last page. Stay with me. Stay with me. I have a few examples. I don't know if any of the board would like me to provide specific examples when I'm thinking about with this particular expectation in the handbook. I have a couple. If you want me to go through them, I will. Anyone? Are we good? I mean, I'm not asking that like I want to, but, and my point was that inside of the book, we're providing this book, and inside of the book, there's a number of things that happen. There's a bunch of examples. My opinion is that it's in conflict with this policy as far as the definitions of lewd, indecent, and obscene. If a student was in an environment in a school where they were masturbating anywhere outside of their clothing or manipulating the bulge on page 61, I gotta think that that would be inappropriate and against what's expected in the handbook. Plato's Symposium image, I'm a big art fan, page 135. What if a student drew this or portrayed this on a t-shirt with two individuals that were undressed, having some physical interaction? I understand it was implied as art in the book. I get that. But that would be inappropriate, in my view, if a student drew that or presented it in some way inside of the school. Page 166, the dialogue between the characters fits all three of the above. Lewd, indecent, or obscene. Two students in the school talking to each other, talking about their anticipated sexual experience in the future, or a couple in the school that maybe they were a couple and they were having a discussion about their anticipated sexual experience later that day. We would, I have to think that we would think that that would be inappropriate in the school. I also want to reference a portion of the handbook from the high school that cites policy GBCD, which is our computer acceptable use, RSU 14 system network, and another policy IJNDB, student computer technology and internet use. Violation of this policy rules may result in the loss of computer and internet privileges and disciplinary action as appropriate. Inappropriate computer use under this policy has two categories. Disciplinary consequences will occur when a student uses their computer inappropriately. The severity of the consequence will be determined according to the nature of the inappropriate use and could range from a verbal redirection to the loss of the computer, restrictions in network login rights, and/or police involvement. Examples of inappropriate include but are not limited to inappropriate examples. There's two categories: inappropriate language or images. Again, this is from the Wyndham High School handbook. Playing games during class time, Social networking during class time. Extremely inappropriate is another category: illegal downloads, harassment, or pornographic violent images. I will go with the same logic as I went to earlier. I understand the definition of pornography very well from a precedent perspective. I understand that's not our job here. I'm looking at it from the student's perspective. I'm looking at it from the perspective of taking the images out of this book, literally just taking them out of the book and looking at them in the context of our expectations for the handbook. Pornographic or violent images are under the extremely inappropriate category. If a student reproduced those in any way, shape, or form inside of the school, I have to think that this would fall under not only the policy I just described, but if they're looking at them up on the computer. While we may know the legal definition of pornography is a school board in cases that have set a precedent to our students, again, I would like to reference just the Merriam-Webster definition. That's what our committee used. The depiction of erotic behavior in pictures or writing intended to cause sexual excitement. The character that's described in this book, and I'm not refuting fact, I'm not saying that the experience isn't valuable or that it wasn't authentic, just that my point was that there is one point in this memoir where they fantasize about the image of Plato's philosophy with the two individuals, and they talk about literally being able to have an orgasm from the thought of the picture. And I think that's really important because the intention to cause sexual excitement is literally outlined visually and in their description of what that part of their life and how they were experiencing their sexual identity and their experience at that time. That image, as it relates to the computer's materials, such as book or photographs, again, the definition of pornography in the dictionary, that depicts erotic behavior and is intended to cause sexual excitement, the depiction of acts in a sensational manner as to arouse a quick, intense emotional reaction. I think this is exactly the definition of a young individual looking at visual content and reading about someone else's experiences sexually to the point of arousal. This is the memoir. I think that that's being missed. It's an important part of the memoir. It's a critical part of the book in the experience. So I think refuting it in the weeds of what pornography is isn't really the point. We're looking at it from the student's perspective. There's several examples I've recorded that I can review, that we can go through, et cetera. So I come down to, this is the end, stay with me. I feel while this book may not have been intended from the author's perspective to be creating a piece of work that would be published to fit the definition of pornography, it's without a doubt that a student using their school-issued device to search the exact phrases within this book, or by looking up terms or searching the reference website provided in this book, www.kink.com, they would be in violation of the policy GBCD, Acceptable Use RSU 14 System Network. We had a student tell us tonight that they typed in kink.com, or implied, I want to speak for that individual, but we use filtering technology to prevent this from happening because we don't want our students to be looking at content like kink.com in our buildings on our network. And it's fairly clearly delineated in our tech policies. The last policy, IJNDB, Student Computer Use Technology and Internet Use, compliance with the district policies and rules concerning computer use is mandatory. Students who violate these policies and rules may, after being given an opportunity to respond to an alleged violation, have their computer technology privileges limited, suspended, or revoked. RSU 14 utilizes the filtering technology designed to block materials that are obscene or harmful to minors and child pornography. That's in our policy. There are several references to the literal word porn inside of this book. I believe it's our policy intended to filter out if a student searches the content from this book on their school-issued device. page 117 references a discussion about porn and whether it's heterosexual or homosexual. Page 157 references a website, doesn't refer to pornography. This book doesn't say, hey, go to the internet and open up this site. But the book provides a website, and if a grade 9 student opens this, and we know that the book's recommended for 16 and up from the place that we ordered it, they're going to incite a curiosity in this student. And as we heard tonight, find a different device that allows them to look that up. And I think there's a chain of custody that we're responsible for there. It's clear to me after review that this material creates a double standard that is difficult for our students. The material is okay in context of the book in the library, but if I search on my computer for the same material subject to being identified by our filtering technology, and thereby the student would be in violation of the student handbook and our policies. The material doesn't have a reliable age range that can be agreed upon by the committee as demonstrated in the report, and upon my review found their reported age ranges in the reference material. Not one of them, nor any I could find, showed the age range represented for the students that attend our high school in its entirety. The material is consistently recommended for 15 or 16 plus. We are unable to restrict the materials from students that do not fit within the recommended age for this material within our library. We cannot tell a student that is not 16 years old they can't take this book out of our library. We already know that. We're not allowed to do that. It's a censorship issue. While I do understand there's been an argument presented by in the report by the committee that the material in books should not be taken out of context and the material as a whole should supersede any transgressions in content within our school library, the content as a whole is rated as a whole, doesn't represent the age of the range of the students that access it within Wyndham High School. I read that part, so I'm almost done. Finally, there's a terrific number of resources for LGBTQ individuals. I talked about the white papers at the beginning of what I was saying tonight. There are great resources for the students of all ages that are in our library at the Wyndham High School and are not in conflict with our student handbook and our established policies that we expect our students to abide by. I will be voting to reject the committee decision to keep genderqueer in the library for the reasons I stated above, and I look forward with optimism that the materials brought into the district support the needs of all of our students, all the students, by providing materials that meet our district strategic plan, support all of our students, and are age appropriate for all students within the school library. That's it.
So I will admit that when I started to read this book, I had some preconceived notions about it. The people that had spoken about it at public meetings ahead of time were pretty convincing as to the content and theme of the subject of the book. I came out of reading this book with a different viewpoint than some. This book for me did not really highlight LGBTQIA plus issues. For me, this book was a horrific example of a child who is a victim of parental neglect. I read passages of it more than once because I couldn't believe that this poor child was raised by two people that were so incompetent as parents that they ruined this person's life. And I was horrified at reading some of these sections. The fact that this child did not enter school until first grade, that her father was a teacher at the school, and she did not know how to read. That is parental neglect. The fact that she moved up through the grades and didn't know how to do math, didn't know how to do basically anything, didn't know anything about the real world, didn't know about her body and what changes she would be going through. That is parental neglect. This story is extremely valuable. It is extremely valuable as a showcase to how poor, neglectful parenting can ruin a child. and I was going to say a lot more, but this story is very impactful, very valuable. However, it needs to be read by a mature, through a mature viewpoint. I do not believe that the maturity it takes to understand this person's life story exists amongst the majority of our students in the high school. I feel very, very sad for this author and what she's gone through in life and how her family abandoned and set her up for failure. Thank you.
Maya Angelou said, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." When the Genderqueer Challenge was started, I reached out to a Windham grad who was transgender and asked about their experience in school, in the school bathrooms, and whether students and staff were supportive or not, and whether they read Genderqueer, the book. I am not using their names, their pronouns, or the year they graduated for their privacy, but I am going to tell you what the person said. This is all quoted. "The vast majority of teachers, students, and administrators were great. There were some kids who weren't just in my social. They didn't know to use my right name and pronouns, but I never saw them, so that didn't really matter. Most of the teachers were great. And there were some teachers I was nervous to tell because I didn't know how they would respond. Sometimes I would ask other teachers to tell them because I was nervous. They always did that with no issue. When I was a freshman, my friend and I passed out posters for teachers that said, quote, "This classroom is a safe space for queer people," unquote. So I was able to directly know which adults were willing and open to be there for me when they said yes or no for taking the poster or not. When it came time to pass out the posters, every single teacher took one. Teachers were bugging me to give them one if I had run out of them before I got to their classroom. I couldn't have asked for a better response, and that was before I had even come out as trans. When I started telling teachers that I was trans in the beginning of the school year, what I would do is just go into the classroom and say, "Hey, this is my name on the roster, but please don't call me that. My name is blank. The pronouns that I use are blank," and everybody was fine with that. Again, I'm keeping the privacy. I remember one of the first times that I used the blank bathroom at school. Some kids that were kind of notoriously not the nicest were also in there. And I did not acknowledge them, but they were definitely laughing the entire time I was in there. I laughed too, and then I went to one of my safe teachers and told her about the experience. She reminded me that I was safe and protected, and that if anything happened at all, I would have a leg to stand on and they wouldn't. I think one of my favorite experiences is just, there was this one girl got lost, sorry. There was this one girl in my class who was somewhat combative. Just in general, that's how her personality was. And I remember being a little more open about it, and she happened to be in my homeroom. She came up to me and said, quote, "Listen, if anybody is mean to you or if anyone tries to come at you, I'll take care of it," unquote. Which was a really sweet gesture, and I really appreciated that. The way she fights her battles and the way I fight my battles are different, so I didn't ask her for help. But it was nice to know that I had supporters in places I didn't expect. One thing I found surprising before I was really coming out to everybody, but I knew that I was trans, was on the bus coming home from a field trip. The queer adult who was nearby was talking about how they didn't think that trans people were real, and the only person they thought was really trans was a person who was born with ambiguous genitalia. The kids are sitting there listening to them, and I shrunk in my seat. I was scared that these kids were listening to someone say that my identity wasn't valid, and they weren't saying anything about it. I was not willing to stand up for myself at this point in time because I wasn't out. I found out years later that there was another person who felt supremely uncomfortable with that, and I'm glad I wasn't the only one. I didn't tell anybody about that experience until years later because I was nervous people weren't going to believe me. For resources, I didn't have any books, so I had to use the internet. I watched videos on YouTube. I learned a lot from these collaborations of various queer people, talking about queer issues and talking about gender and all that stuff. But most of these people weren't even trans. They were mostly young gay adults. There were no trans people in my life, and I didn't have anybody to show me the way forward. If I had trans people in my life or people telling me that I could make a step forward, it would have been a lot easier. I am now the trans adult in every single child's life that I'm a part of. I am the trans adult that is able to tell children that we're not weird and we're not creeps. We like to have fun, we like to play, and we're no different than them. I have read Genderqueer, and this would have been an invaluable piece of literature for me when I was a kid. I know a lot of others whom it would have helped as well. I know there are sex and masturbation scenes, but it's not what I would have been focusing on. They are a part of the book, but I know I wouldn't have used them to learn how to do those things. I would have understood that my feelings that seemed super weird and uncomfortable were not that actually weird. Trans kids know that trans people are under fire. Trans kids know which adults are and which are not on their side. If media isn't on their side or adults in their community aren't their side, who knows what their parents are going to say. It's unbelievably important for the adults at school to be a safe space for these children because they might not have any other place to go. I really learned a lot from that, from the questions that I asked and this person responded with. As I read Genderqueer again, I tried to read it from the perspective of a high school student. I looked up memoir, which for this book means a biography written from a personal knowledge. I also looked up the definition of pornography again, because some parents have claimed that genderqueer is pornography. It does not meet the definition of pornography, which includes, quote, intention to stimulate erotic rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings, unquote. The author is telling their own story. The only mention of kink.com is in one panel out of 5 panels on page 157, which says, quote, toward the SF Armory, San Francisco, if you didn't know, toward the SF Armory, which at the time housed the filming studios of kink.com, unquote. In conclusion, Genderqueer is not required reading for any student. Parents have the opportunity to say that their student is not allowed to check out that book. However, some parents should not be making that decision for other parents or students. Genderqueer can be helpful for someone who is not sure of their gender or sexuality, and for those who are open to learning about other perspectives. I am voting to accept the recommendation of the Book Challenge Committee for Genderqueer, which will continue to be located in the Windham High School Library.
Anyone else?
Okay. Seeing as I was here in the beginning, kind of like sat out there for part of it, but I didn't miss any of it. I can guarantee you that. I did my own research. I read this book. Actually, I read it, and it's, when you get my age, it's really, you know, because when we were brought up, there was none of this around. Nobody was recognized. I mean, if you, when you think about what we do now, I mean, we have special ed where we have 504 plans for kids, et cetera. They were taken and they were put into a special room, and they weren't allowed to associate with anybody else in the school. So over the years, we've made adjustments for everybody that is different. They're not less, they're not more, they're just different. Now we're dealing with a different generation of people, It's kind of like, as they say, coming out of the closet for them. So trying to read this very objectively, because from what I actually was kind of dying to look at it, because from what I had heard from everybody talking, I really expected this to be a very, very different kind of book than what it was. I found this book to be extremely sad. There were a couple of things in there people might have found offensive, but I don't, it's how you, if you look at something subjective and if you look at it objective, you're going to get different opinions. And you can not like it. The thing being is, if this was in the curriculum, I would be livid. It is okay in the library. I believe it's okay in the library. I mean, I know everybody is reaching and going to that website. The thing being is, when you bring that website up, right away it says if you're 18, you shouldn't be here. So the thing being is, if children, wait a minute, this book is not telling children to go there. If you have a child that's going to go onto your phone and going to say, yes, I'm 18 to look at something, then they're doing other things too. So I would not blame this book for that one. Excuse me, I did not interrupt any of you when you spoke. So the thing is, I think the book should be in the library. And that's how I feel. Now, this is the high school.
Excuse me. This is not an interactive thing. Please be respectful of the speaker. We have been exceedingly respectful when you speak. Thank you.
So that's, I did have a whole thing I was going to read, and I decided against it because I figured everybody else would be going through it. But anyway, I will be voting to keep in the library.
I want to thank my fellow board members for their deep dive on this issue. I too have read the book numerous times. When I first saw it, just pages of it briefly, it gave me pause, to be really frank. But then since that time, I have read it 3 times. And so this is what I think. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the students, parents, staff, and community members for their unwavering commitment and support towards RSU 14 and the students we serve. In light of the unprecedented times, your time and interest are highly appreciated. Over the past few months, our board has dedicatedly listened to almost 350 personal testimonies during the public comment period. We have also thoroughly read and considered all me emails that were sent to us. As an individual, I have personally responded to almost 175 emails that expressed different viewpoints on various topics, most of which were related to the memoir Genderqueer. The feedback received has been incredibly valuable and has played a critical role in shaping my perspective on the matter. I found the appeal process to be useful in my ongoing evaluation of the placement of the memoir Genderqueer in our high school library. The process provided me with informative insights, and I'm deeply appreciative of the time and effort invested by those who appealed the book and the book committee review team. Reading the book and contextualizing the experiences conveyed helped me realize that there are families and students who are dealing with issues that I have never encountered while raising my children. It is crucial to acknowledge that some of these families and students are within our own district today. Based on my evaluation and experience with the appeal process, I strongly believe that exposing our students to diverse experiences and perspectives through literature literature is essential in fostering empathy, inclusivity, and understanding towards those who are different from us. Additionally, it is important to have books in our libraries that represent students who identify as gender nonconforming. These books can serve as a valuable resource to help them be seen and heard. I firmly believe in our Issue 14's commitment to providing our students with a wide range of perspectives and experiences to prepare them as they informed critical thinkers is of paramount importance. As a school board member, I trust our professional librarians and staff to make informed decisions regarding books in our libraries. Therefore, I will be voting in favor of accepting the recommendation of the Book Review Committee to retain the book Genderqueer in the Windham High School. May I have a motion, please? Do we have a second? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The book will remain in the library.
Okay. I move to approve going into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 456A and not return to regular meeting.
Second. All those in favor?
There's one person
Thank you.
on the board that used the standard thing. Jody was the only one. So the school handbook is worthless. It's absolutely worthless. See you in court.